Out of the gates and ready to go. Hot Bite with Hutton and Withrow is underway on this Monday edition. Glad you're with us across the OutKick network, which includes YouTube. If you're watching live, you can join Chad in the chat. Just search out OutKick there. Hope you subscribe while you're there. And you can join us on this great radio station you may be listening to. And our studio location, 6th and Peabody with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. A lot to get to, Chad. Good afternoon, and what a weekend of football storylines.
It was something to behold. Everything that we built up throughout the week, thinking and hoping it could be climactic, turned out to be so.
Yeah, college.
Even the big game that was anticlimactic in the end became eventful after the game because of comments.
College and pro, plenty on the table for us today. We've got Bobby Carpenter coming up in an hour. A lot to discuss with him, former Buckeye, about Ryan Day and their win over Notre Dame. We'll get to that in a moment. Plus, Tank Williams, former NFL safety, now NFL analyst and draft analyst. He'll be with us in hour number 3. But first, the biggest headlines from the football weekend. And, Chad, let's start with Oregon's destruction on Colorado. I was thinking we've doubted primetime. We've doubted the Buffs for a while, especially me. I thought they were going to get boat raced the first 2 weeks of the season. They come in 3-0, and then the Ducks take care of them. They leave 3-1 after Oregon destroys them 42-6. Should have seen this coming. Chad, you did. It's exactly what you expected. Did it live up to the billing for you?
Well, it's what we expected from Colorado before the season. This was what I have been saying is going to happen eventually, and it finally happened. There was going to be a humbling. And look, you talk, you run your mouth when things are going well, and that's fine. That's the victor goes the spoils. But just like Deion Sanders keeps receipts, everyone else in college football is quietly keeping receipts on him and his program. I like what Deion had to say after the game. I have no problem with Dan Lanning making it personal, to steal the catchphrase that Deion Sanders is trying to have trademarked in Washington, D.C. right now, if it's personal. He made it personal for his guys against Colorado, going against what they stand for, saying that the Oregon Ducks stand for something different. But this is the start of the humble tour. He had the glory for 3 weeks. It started in Oregon. It's going to continue this week when USC pounds them. But it still doesn't change the fact he's got Colorado ahead of where I thought they were going to be this year.
Yeah.
Doesn't change that in the future they're going to be better. It doesn't change that what he said post-game is right. Hey, better get me now. This is the worst we're going to be. So take your shots right now while you can. He said, I got no problem with him talking if he wants. So, again, I like what Deion had to say after the game, and I also think you're going to see more teams. Now, you got to have the players, and Oregon has the players. And most impressively, Oregon has the players on both lines of scrimmage. This is not just an old Chip Kelly score 70 a game and hope not to give up 73 type Oregon team. This is a physical football team up front on both lines. I was really impressed with Oregon in this one. Hutton, I didn't think it was going to get out of control that quickly.
Yeah.
I thought they'd spread it out in the fourth quarter. I didn't think it was going to be an immediate onslaught, up 28-0 in a lightning fast time and type of game, but that's what it was.
And at one point, it was 42-0. The stats were this at that point. The Ducks had gained 439 yards at 8 yards per play, 25 first downs. Colorado, 39 yards, 1.3 yards per play, 5 first downs. And you're right, Deion likes to make it personal, no matter how petty the personal aspect may be going into that week. But what he's also done moving forward is it's going to be personal for the opponent. And it certainly was for Dan Lanning, who had this to say to his Ducks team before taking the field.
Rooted in substance, not flash, rooted in substance. Today, we talk with our pads. You talk with your helmet, right? Every moment. The Cinderella story is over, man. Right? They're fighting for clicks, we're fighting for wins. There's a difference, right? There's a difference, right? This game ain't going to be played in Hollywood, it's going to be played on the grass, right? It's going to be played on the grass.
This game's not going to be played in Hollywood. It's going to be played on the grass. Just using everything that Deion Sanders has said over and over again
Isn't it
against him with
amazing
his team.
That this matchup in Week 4 produced that pregame speech for Colorado?
Well, think about the Oregon-Colorado game from a year ago and how the whole only focus would have been, let's please just not completely sleepwalk in this game and make it anything close because this team is awful and this program's awful. I mean, that speech is a credit to Deion Sanders and what he's created at Colorado and what he's done, right? I mean, the fact that he cares that much about this game shows what Deion's been able to accomplish so far.
And how about the explosiveness of the conference? Just tying in Oregon here.
By the way, 49-10 was the score a year ago.
Okay.
But I'm saying, imagine that pregame pep talk from Dan Lanning a year ago facing this Colorado program. It was, guys, let's treat this like a business game, business trip. That game was in Boulder. Let's just not fall asleep.
Rewind 3 weeks. Oregon on the road at Baylor.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that didn't produce that type of speech.
No.
I don't expect. I mean, that's what's so surprising about where Colorado is on that pecking order. And with all the chirping, it's an easy way to get your locker room locked in. So through 4 weeks, USC, Washington, Oregon, and Washington State, all top 5 for the most explosive offenses.
And Michael Penix Jr. continues to be my Heisman favorite. I love what they're doing that offense. You
crushed that prediction.
But you brought it. I mean, but Washington State with a huge win, and Cam Ward is an exciting player. It is a damn shame this is the last of the Pac-12. I mean, what a cruel injustice that in a year where all the talk of the offseason is how terribly George Kliavkoff handled the whole situation and how the networks are conspiring against them and they thought they were going to get a deal and they couldn't. And now everyone's looking around and programs are bolting. And this all leads into what has been maybe a historic type season for this conference. If we're looking at it right now,
they could get 2 teams in easily.
They're getting multiple teams in that 14 playoff.
They beat up on each other, which is certainly possible.
Very true.
Certainly possible.
They are now going to get the benefit of the doubt that the SEC and Big Ten have gotten for years, where, hey, just because they have one more loss doesn't mean they're not the better team because look at their competition. Look at their conference. Look how loaded it is. You can say that about the Pac-12 this year. That is a stacked conference up top. And the round robin between those teams at the top, it's going to be fun to watch all year. Colorado's not one of those top teams.
No, but
I think Saturday showed that. But
it's not. But Colorado produces the eyeballs necessary to be in a Heisman race or for the other team.
They're also good enough to throw a wrench in this thing and knock someone off in the Pac-12 that's really good and cost them a shot at the playoffs. So, again, I'm not putting Colorado in that mix of top teams, but Deion's already proven early this year they can surprise people, and they could certainly do it again. But the very top of that conference is rock solid.
It is.
And fun to watch.
Also fun, in a weird game, Ohio State, Notre Dame. And Ryan Day fired up post-game after winning on the final play against the Irish.
I'd like to know where Lou Holtz is right now. What he said about our team, I cannot believe. This is a tough team right here. We're proud to be from Ohio, and it's always been Ohio against the world, and it'll continue to be Ohio against the world. But I'll tell you what, I love those kids, and we got a tough team.
I mean, the way that game ended with Marcus Freeman, what are you thinking on those 2 snaps? And then Ryan Day fired up about a Lou Holtz comment. Chad, this is, you can tell Ryan Day feeling the pressure. How can you not read into that if he's listening to Lou Holtz at 86 years old discuss his team, and he's pointing back to Michigan in the matchup there.
We played one bad half.
Hey,
one bad half, 3 years.
But I as that's happening in the moment, I'm thinking he's absolutely feeling a little heat because if he loses that game and loses to Michigan, all of that chatter is real. As good as he's been, and I'm not advocating for him even being on the hot seat. He's been great. But he's feeling it. That was the emotion coming out, and he's listening to a former coach of the opponent he's facing, and he's letting loose on it. In a weird game.
When he says, I'd like to know where Lou Holtz is right now. Well, he's probably in bed. He's 86 years old.
Oh, he was watching.
But he, maybe. Could be an early bedtime for Lou Holtz right now also. Extremely odd response from Ryan Day. I mean, dude, you just got a huge win.
I know.
Like, let's celebrate
What do
the
you
win.
think's on his mind in that moment?
I get, like, we're going to get into another post-game press conference moment, which I thought was also someone trashing an elderly man, but I thought in a much more respectful way and done much better. I just think the timing was odd. The fact that the first person you think about when that happens is Lou Holtz, and he was very emotional in delivering that talk, and I get some of that, but it was almost like he had to force himself, Hutton, to keep going back to his team. These players are tough. My players are tough. I just feel great for these guys. I thought it was odd. It was not a good look for Ryan Day, but most importantly, they got the win. They find a way to get it done. But the worst look of the night goes to Marcus Freeman,
Yes.
who just commits complete coaching operation malpractice with 10 men on the field for the last few plays.
7 seconds and 3 seconds. Only 10 on defense. And who cares if you get a penalty? And by the way, you didn't need a timeout or a penalty because Ohio State substituted. They ran other players on, which gives you the opportunity to do the same.
Add someone.
And
I think he's lying.
But aside from that,
I
the
don't
fact
think
that you knew you didn't have a timeout and you didn't want the penalty, who cares at that point? The final play of the game. They're going for the win. You're not giving them a first down where they can kick a field goal. It's not. It just wasn't necessary.
Well, the ball's on, what, the 1.5 yard line?
But exactly, but 3 seconds still. Again, 3 seconds.
But if it's a penalty, it's nothing. You've got to stop them on the goal line.
But it's not like you're giving them the first down and they get more opportunities.
Right.
It's the final 2 snaps of the game.
Yeah, I don't buy what he's saying. I think they got caught asleep and no one saw it and no one alerted them to it. That final
back-to-back plays,
that
too.
overhead shot, which, by the way, this overhead shot that we're getting now more and more in football is terrific. One of the looks of the Bijan Robinson run for Atlanta the week before is one of the favorite pieces of football video I've ever seen in my life. But that overhead shot of everyone lying down and where it's clear there is a 4th down lineman missing on the left side, that Ohio State runs right at that empty spot for the game-winning touchdown. Bad look for Marcus Freeman. And I like Marcus Freeman. I think he's a good coach. But he is learning on the job. And now that you are into this point in your career, you've been at this a little while, you can't have that. Cannot have that. And I'm not buying his reasoning and his excuse that, well, we just didn't want to get a penalty in that moment. I'm not buying that.
You're not buying, because one of the snaps you can add a man based on the fact that Ohio State ran in players. They're going to give you that opportunity. And then it happened in back-to-back snaps where you had 10. So there's no excuse for it happening again in between plays.
And his team is built in his image. They are a physical, tough team.
They are.
That plays good defense. He is a defensive guy, defensive coordinator. Sam Hartman, their 24, almost 25-year-old all-world quarterback, was not that impactful in this game. This wasn't a high-scoring type game. They had it right there.
That's right.
They had it right there where Lou Holtz said it would be. That Ohio State's going to get beat by the more physical team. And what happened was Ohio State looked pretty good against 10 defenders, being physical and running the ball in on the last play because of Marcus Freeman. And that's not to say that Ohio State wasn't physical in this game as well. They were, but this was the type of game Lou Holtz was talking about that Ohio State has struggled in at times. Low scoring, team that's known to be more physical. Huge missed opportunity for Marcus Freeman. That would have been the biggest win for Notre Dame in 30 years.
Well, not only that.
If they're able to finish that one out and get a stop on the goal line, that is their biggest win in 30 years.
No doubt. But beyond that, Chad, the impact of the college football playoff now, they could still get in because they lost on the final snap to Ohio State. And presumably in the hypothetical here, Ohio State's in, and you're trying to find that 4th team, and you've got a lot of 2-loss teams. Potentially a 2-loss champion in the SEC, maybe in the Pac-12 before it's all said and done. So there's a lot to balance, but that one snap, those 2 snaps, will come back to haunt you because fans don't forget. They remember those mishaps, those gaffes. And learning on the job just isn't acceptable at that level, at that position.
No, and I don't think Notre Dame fans want to hear that bit of excuse-making either. That's one where, I mean, you almost just have to stand up there and own it and say, we completely screwed up in the end. That was awful. But a great game. Came down to the final play. I was thinking about the Bush push the whole
Yes.
time when they're down there on the goal line. Very reminiscent. I remember watching that night game when it happened, 2005, I think it was that year? 2004. So 2004, the year before USC lost to Texas in the national championship. They won the national title that year in 2004. But I remember it well, and I was having visions of that game watching it Saturday night.
We'll get more from Bobby Carpenter on this coming up in about 45 minutes on the Buckeyes. And
we'll find out
Irish.
from Bobby, is it in fact Ohio versus the world?
Yeah.
As Ryan Day says.
We'll find out. Yeah.
Does he feel that level of pressure that it's Ohio versus the world everywhere he goes? Everywhere he goes in life, on a Sirius XM show, on McAfee show, does he feel Ohio versus the world?
If you don't respond with IO when someone says OH, you're the enemy.
Another question I want to ask Bobby, do you believe?
We've got
Nothing else, just do you believe?
The Chicago Bears not believing in their season right now. Further details came out about Alan Williams and his resignation as defensive coordinator last week, and it was conduct related. Reading from the Chicago Tribune and the report from Adam Schefter yesterday on NFL Live, NFL Countdown, Schefter said he was told it's not criminal activity. It was inappropriate, and the Bears' HR department was involved in the decision for Alan Williams to step aside. So, not criminal activity, but the FBI raided his home.
Did they have Brenda Tracy speak to the team also?
Yeah. Again.
What happened? This is still every report that comes out makes this more confusing. Can someone report what's going on, please?
Alphas and betas including. We'll dive into the Dolphins next.
Hello, good morning, everybody. Welcome on into OutKick the Morning. I am your host, Charlie Arnold. Now, when it comes to race baiting in sports, no one does it better than ESPN. It's one of the reasons I was frustrated while working there. And now the Disney-owned company is out to prove just how overwhelming racism really is in the world of sports. Later this month, ESPN Plus will debut a new series on their streaming platform called Skin in the Game with Dr. Ibram X. Kendi. Now, if you aren't familiar with Kendi, he is a so-called anti-racist. He's a writer who makes a living trying to prove just how racist everybody else is. One of his books defines racism as referring to policies and ideas that create or permit any differences in outcomes in racial groups, to which I think it's clear racism goes both ways these days. But that's not a double narrative you will find in this series. Instead, the first episode will focus on Black athletes who use public platforms to protest injustices and what it costs to speak up. And in the second, why Black female athletes are considered polarizing when they prioritize their mental health, just as a few examples. Now, I appreciate highlighting athletes who have done incredible things in the world of sports, whether they are Black, white, Asian, Latin, or otherwise. But using Ibram X. Kendi to lead this series just feels like a setup. Is he going to mention that in these episodes, there was an occurrence in 2016 where Colin Kaepernick wore socks to a 49ers practice that showed cartoon policemen done up as pigs? Now, this even being prior to Kaepernick's sit-down of the national anthem during San Francisco's August preseason game. Or will they mention how in 2022, former ESPN anchor and sports analyst Jamel Hill famously called Trump a white supremacist and his voters all racist? Until the documentary airs, we can only ask one question. Will it be fair and balanced? Seems highly unlikely. Now, considering the host, handpicked by ESPN, he has incited his own racist remarks against people that don't look like him in the past, so I don't see how any way, in any shape, any form, this is an unbiased series. Now, speaking of the past, once upon a time, guys, I also worked for the Fox station in Indianapolis, and I covered the Colts. One of the guys I covered in that locker room, former NFL safety Sergio Brown, who went on to play for 6 years in the league. When I met him, he was talented, he was smart, and an all-around very, very pleasant guy. So I was startled to come across headlines 2 days ago that his mother had been murdered and that he was nowhere to be found. Then yesterday, the story got even weirder. From an Instagram burner account, which seems to belong to Brown, a video was posted of Brown making some very, very bizarre claims. Check it out.
I got it. Dorian, it's P. Sherman.
There's something going on with the
Wallaby
screen.
Sydney.
It's going.
Oh my gosh. I can't. Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming. What the?
missing? They ain't never seen Finding Nemo? What the is going on? This is traumatic. Lucky I know how to say a joke. You
can hear him say he thought his mom was on vacation and the FBI and Maywood Police Department in Illinois had kidnapped him. This is a part of the video that you didn't see, but he goes on to make very, very weird claims. He also talks about fake news. I mean, it's clear Sergio Brown has lost it. In making it even worse for Sergio, one of his mom's neighbors told a local news station that police told him that they saw Brown through the door's Ring camera and light a bonfire to burn his mother's clothes.
Hi, Mike with Hunter Withrow rolls on across the OutKick network. If you missed our conversation with Lou Holtz last week, gave some perspective on what Ryan Day was discussing. You can check that out, and you can catch him tomorrow on Dan Dockich on Don't At Me here across the OutKick network.
He'll have his chance to respond to Ryan Day.
That's right.
It's Lou Holtz versus the world tomorrow.
That's right. Good chat with him. We'll have him back on soon. We've got Andy Staples coming up at 3 o'clock today, right at 40 minutes from right now. Bobby Carpenter had is it a work deal, a work emergency? Yeah, that dude he wears so many different hats.
Did I hear something about an oil well? Is what Davey told us?
They've got
I didn't know that he was in the oil industry.
I mean,
Is he Daniel Day-Lewis's character from There Will Be Blood? That's how I picture him, wearing an outfit like that, prospecting.
Yeah.
Is he an old prospector?
Hopefully, well, no.
Man.
That movie, though, was pretty boring throughout. Very slow.
Very slow.
Very slow.
Very slow. It takes a bit to get into
That's
it.
not
Takes a little bit to get
that's
into
not
it.
That's not his rhythm. Let's put it that way. Tank Williams will join us, former NFL safety, now NFL analyst. That's coming up in hour number 3 today. Chad, the alphas and betas of the weekend. We start with the alphas, the cream of the crop. The Miami Dolphins. Wow, 70 points posted against the Denver Broncos, who we will get to in a moment. But the alpha mentality and the the total destruction and embarrassing scoreboard point where you post 70. Incredible.
I have Devin A-Chain on my fantasy team.
Oh, yes. Tell me about this.
Did not start him and never even thought to start him because he's a rookie who hasn't done a lot until this game. 52 points in fantasy football for Devin A-Chain this week. This is not supposed to happen in the NFL. This is supposed to be a top 5 team in the FBS and a Power 5 playing an FCS nobody in week 1 of the college football season. That's where you expect a score like this, or 70 points to be put up. This is an abomination for the Denver Broncos. We may get back to the Broncos a little bit later in this segment and their head coach, but what a just unbelievable onslaught from that Miami Dolphins offense. And now, suddenly we've been talking 49ers, Cowboys, been the most impressive. It's the Dolphins. It is the Dolphins, and it's the 49ers. Right now, given what transpired yesterday in the desert.
First team to post 70 points in 57 years, 726 yards of offense, 9 yards short of the record of 735. That was the 1951 Los Angeles Rams. And the numbers here, A-Chain, you mentioned the shoulder injury in the preseason, and then the slow rollout. Everyone was dominant yesterday. They are the first team in the modern era to score 5 rushing and 5 passing touchdowns in a single game.
And Mike McDaniel took his foot off the gas in the end and said that he didn't want bad karma. He wanted the Miami Dolphins to have good karma, and that's just not the way he wants to do things. Think about that. He did that after scoring 70 points and had a chance to score more in a game.
Yeah, and again, 9 yards short of the yardage record as well.
I want McDaniel to succeed too.
Yeah,
He's a guy that's worth
He's
rooting
against
for.
the grain on what
Yes.
the football coach, how you would describe a
Looks
football
and
coach.
sounds like.
Yeah. The silhouette of a coach is not him. It's not Mike McDaniel.
It's like the anti-Ryan Day rant.
Yes.
Like, to me, Ryan Day was your standard stereotypical football guy talk rant after a game. Let's know where Lou Holtz is right about now.
It's also
that is not Mike McDaniel. That's never going to be him for the Dolphins.
It's also not a rant that Dan Lanning did.
No.
McDaniel wouldn't produce that either. Another alpha of the weekend is the Oregon head coach.
Yeah, he said he's not after clicks. He's after wins. They're about playing on the grass, not in Hollywood. He took his shot. We saw it a week ago. Jay Norvell for Colorado State knew that the spotlight was going to be on his program just because he was going to be in the shade of all that light on Colorado's program. And he took his chance to talk trash about Deion and get his team in the spotlight a bit. It turned out to be a great game.
Yeah.
Dan Lanning did the exact same thing. There's going to be more coaches now, smartly, I believe, using the celebrity of Deion Sanders to pump themselves up and their program up. And this was Dan Lanning's shot. He took it, he called it, and like Babe Ruth hitting a home run after calling a shot, he delivered in this game. They did not just beat Colorado. They did every damn thing he said they were going to do. They went out there and blitzkrieged them from the very beginning. Great job by him. He was an alpha in this one. He treated that game like one, and he used it to get some spotlight on Oregon. Hutton, you're going to see more teams do this when they face Colorado. As long as they know everyone's going to be talking about Deion and Colorado regardless, they're going to use that week and that opportunity when they play the Buffaloes to make sure that they get some of that shine as well.
Do we have the ratings for that game? Do we have the numbers? Because
I have not seen it yet.
So the sorry, I'm over here trying to put these headphones back in. I don't. The Chad
slip sliding away over there.
Here's the comparison I'm thinking of as I'm watching the Oregon Colorado game, and then just you mentioned the blitzkrieg. It reminded me of Oregon and Georgia in the season opener, what Georgia did to Oregon, and the perception that's the foundation of the perception of a program. That game, Oregon-Georgia, 6.2 million tuned into that. And I'm betting you, based on the ratings we saw last week and what we've seen throughout, everyone wants to tune in and see what Colorado's going to do next. And a lot of people tuned in to watch, and there's a different perception about the Ducks right now because they didn't play their best game, but they still won on the road against Baylor. And Baylor could not beat them, even though Oregon was not at that 10 out of 10 performance. That's saying something, but that didn't get much flash or headline. This will, and they also show how complete their entire roster is. Impressive victory and a great job by Lanning.
I don't have the final ratings yet, but I do have Sports Media Watch, where they do ratings projections for games. And given the time and the competition, the game up against them was not an overly compelling Ole Miss Alabama game. It turned out they're projecting Hutton 12.56 million. So we'll see if they reach that. To compare that, a year ago, top audience is always Ohio State, Michigan, 17.1 million. Second place all season was Tennessee, Georgia, with 13.06 million. So if it's close to that prediction, it is right there with the second most watched game of all of 2022.
And I'm not comparing the programs and the state of the program, Oregon or Georgia, from last year. What I'm doing, I'm just saying, like, the perception of you get a moment,
Oregon
you
could
get
be
an
there.
impression. You get it, but I'm saying Colorado's not Oregon or Georgia from a year ago.
They're not defending national champion the way Georgia was last year in November.
They made the most of their opportunity in front of everybody.
Yep.
And that's huge. And Lanning called his shot. And Chad, Lou Holtz, alpha. For all of these coaches that say and tell their locker rooms to tune out all of the noise, there's a lot of coaches that are talking this year about things that they've heard, pointing out negative comments or slights against their team. And Ryan Day did that post-game, directed at Lou Holtz, who is sitting back, watching the game, and calling it like it is. And that's exactly how Michigan has been the victor over Ohio State the last 2 seasons, because of the physicality and the trench warfare that goes on up front. Ryan Day took it personal to steal Deion's line, and he took it personal with an 86-year-old Lou Holtz on national TV. First comments after the game. The alpha in that is Coach Holtz.
Yeah, never feud down, right? And this isn't a shot at Lou Holtz, but Ryan Day bringing up Lou Holtz, who hasn't really been all that relevant for a while, hasn't been on national TV, right? Hasn't been a big part of everyone's Saturday in a while, who won a national title in 1988. Was a great coach, Hall of Famer at a number of places. Won the national title in 88 at Notre Dame. But the fact that Lou Holtz was able to incite that level of verbal violence from Ryan Day the moment his team just won a big road game at Notre Dame, that's alpha status.
Yes.
So when you can bring that down and get him that fired up, Coach Holtz, we salute you. You're an alpha.
To the betas, and we start.
Not that we ever second-guessed him being an alpha.
I would love to ask him about what his thoughts were when he heard this, watching this post-game. Skip Holtz, too, for that matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, because prior to having Coach Holtz on, we called and made sure that everything was set up properly for Coach. And Lou Holtz was awesome getting there. He's like, I may not be able to get up and go get my Diet Coke, may not feel like that, but I'll be able to rattle off anything historically that you want. And he certainly does.
So in the YouTube chat, Michael, who's following the ratings, we don't know yet on Colorado, Oregon.
Right.
But Ohio State, Notre Dame, Hutton, peaked at over 14 million between 10:30 and 10:45 at the end of that game.
That's a massive fan base on both sides.
That would be the second most watched game of 2022. If Tennessee, Georgia was a little over 13 million, that's the second most watched game, just that one at night. I don't think, certainly with the score didn't get there, Colorado and Oregon will not reach that, but it's going to be really good.
And that tells
the start of the game is going to be really good.
The impact of primetime in that, massive. Sean Payton was supposed to be making an impact in Denver. Preseason, calling out what was wrong with the Broncos. He's going to do the exact opposite of what Nathaniel Hackett and the front office and general manager had done the season prior. A strict general behind the scenes. Russell Wilson can't have an office right now. Poor guy. Well, I'm looking at the head coach and thinking, what's going on in that office? 70 points scored against the Denver Broncos. The historic loss, by the way, comes after the 35-33 loss to Washington, where they were up 18 points at home, and the Commanders came back and won that game. You're thinking, moving forward, they've got the Bears, and then Week 5, the New York Jets and Nathaniel Hackett. What an epic disaster. And, Chad, to think that Payton could have waited and decided, I'm going to take the best opportunity, I'm going to sit out another year and just do media, all good. The perception would have been way different. Everyone's still knocking on the door the way they were for John Gruden. And now, looking at this is as laughable and worse.
It's worse
than what we saw last year from a first-time head coach in Nathaniel Hackett to now what we saw on the road from his team and that coaching staff and this head coach.
It's worse, and I didn't think it's possible to look more like a clown show than what Nathaniel Hackett had done, but he's doing that. Mike McDaniel talked about, I want good karma on the Miami Dolphins, and that's why he didn't decide to run up the score and break records. That's not how you should go about breaking records. Throwing in the end zone when you already have 70 points, not going to do it that way, wants good karma. Sean Payton asked for it, and he's getting the opposite when he called out Nathaniel Hackett the way he did. There is an unspoken, unwritten code, especially amongst coaches, especially amongst NFL coaches, not to bury your own that way. And when he did that with Jarrett Bell in that interview, he's invited some bad karma on that team. Here's another thing that I believe about Sean Payton. He's not going to handle this failure well. This is not going to be I'm going to change my ways and get guys in here and give Russell Wilson that office back and really kind of be a kinder, softer version of Sean Payton and pull this thing back together. I don't think he's going to handle it well at all. I'm really interested to see how far south this can go now, because he's not going to change who he is and what he's about right now. I'm not saying that he should. I'm just saying he's not the type that's going to keep things level and come back and make sure that they pull it together and have some success this season. I don't see him handling this whole situation well.
They have allowed 102 points in the last 7 quarters combined. 102.
And he's getting snappy with reporters after the game.
Yeah.
Back and forth at the press conference. Their question when they're just reading off the stats of how historically bad that performance was.
Rough.
Yeah, it's bad.
Chad, if you're going to get Bama, this was the prime time for Ole Miss to go on the road and do so. And there were closers, and there were a team that was able to stay competitive for a bit. Alabama closed the game. Lane Kiffin's team did not. And Kiffin, if you're not going to get Saban now, he's not going to.
Look, he's entertaining. And for all that entertainment value, calling out who's actually calling defensive plays, we looked at tape and Kevin Steele's been replaced, joking about, man, this may be the last time ever we get to face a Nick Saban team and all of that. Can't go out and score 10 points. A low for your program in a big moment like that, in a big game like that. That's hugely disappointing for Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin. He gets beta status for this 1 week.
We go rapid fire across college football straight ahead, and what we learned based on certain programs and victors and losers. Plus, Andy Staples joins us in 25 minutes on Hot Mic.
I'm here at the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix, but that's not the only big race that's on people's minds. Let's go talk about it.
There's no way Biden can win again. There's just no way. Even the people that voted for him because they didn't like Trump, now at least have to see, senile, not all there. Probably won't be alive for 4 more years.
Are you a Trump guy? Or are you a DeSantis guy? Or someone else?
I don't like any of them.
Who's your dream candidate? Who would you want to run?
Myself. I think the best candidates probably are smart enough not to run.
I just hope there's somebody that's young enough to care about the country instead of their politics.
My fear is they get Gavin Newsom from California. And I think it would be the new cool vote for the younger people, and that's what I don't like.
Who do you think on the Republican side would be able to take on Gavin Newsom?
Great question. As a Republican registered, I love what Trump's body of work did, but they're just out to get him and destroy him, and we won't get things done, which is crappy for me to say. I thought DeSantis was going to be the guy. Trump only has 4 years left. He cannot fix everything that just happened in 4 years. And he's going to be battling indictments and all these false stuff for the next 4 years. We won't get anything done. And it'll just be the stalemate in America. That's why I almost don't want him in. But if he is the leading candidate, that's who I'm going to vote for.
Is there any Democrat that you would vote for, consider voting for?
Absolutely not.
What about RFK Jr.?
No.
Who should our first female president be?
Michelle Obama, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Harambe 2024.
We have the 2024 presidential race coming up, and I wanted to see who you thought your favorite TV characters would vote for. Homer Simpson, who do you think he would vote for?
Donald Trump, all the way.
Vito Corleone.
Whoa. Whoever advances the cause of the Corleone family. Yeah.
Tony Soprano. If Tony Soprano is voting in the 2024 election, who do you think he's voting for?
I'm going to go Ron DeSantis.
Okay. Why do you think that?
Just seems like a Ron DeSantis kind of guy.
Is this a meatball joke that you're trying to make right now? What about Homer Simpson?
Homer would vote for Biden because he's a dope.
Who do you think Napoleon Dynamite would vote for?
That's a good question. I actually don't know.
There's a right answer here.
He's voting for himself or Pedro.
There's a Viking show, I think.
Okay.
Maybe that's Hulu. I don't know.
So in the Viking show, whatever the main character is, who do you think they would vote for in 2024?
Probably a goat or a dog.
I think we have one of those in office right now. So who do you think Jon Snow would vote for in this upcoming election?
I'm going to say Donald J. Trump.
Why do you think so?
because Game of Thrones is all about drama, and Trump comes with the drama, baby.
Would you vote for Trump from jail?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably. Because at that point, what else do you have to lose?
Okay, would you vote for Trump from a jail cell?
Yeah, baby, I will get Trump out of jail.
Would you vote for Trump in jail?
Oh, yeah.
Based as
The thing that Trump needs to remember is there's another political figure that said, I don't recall very well. Yeah. And that's all he's got to say.
Is there like a dream candidate, someone that you think could like save us all?
Yeah, Jesus.
Amen to that.
Hot Mic with Hunter Withrow across the OutKick network. Getting the headphones adjusted here.
Got it?
Yeah, somehow.
We locked in now?
I'll hold it during the entire break, Chad. If you put your hand down, it's gonna look like we're holding
I can be
hands.
taken many ways, Hutton.
Yeah, that's right. 6 at Peabody location with EHOB Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Andy Staples joins us in 20 minutes. Looking forward to talking all things college football with him. I'm just going to set these down. How about that? We have also Tank Williams joining us, former Titan safety, briefly with the Patriots to end his career. And he had a brief stint. I'm trying to remember the other team in between. Nonetheless, he is excellent, former Stanford safety, and excellent at analyzing college and NFL football. He'll be with us coming up in hour number 3.
And he's doing some scouting now, too, right? Where he looks at prospects.
Yeah. And he was working with the 33rd team, and now he's doing some sports wagering analysis and much more. But he'll have some great assessments of what he's seen across the NFL, having talked with him briefly this morning.
Some of these former players that now
him.
look at prospects and do NFL draft work. Corey Chavis is another one that comes to mind.
Yeah.
They're really good at it, a lot of these guys. So I look forward to talking to Tank.
You either live it and like dive in and enjoy watching and analyzing play-by-play, like sequences and players, or it's just too much.
Yeah.
And this is their hobby more than anything. We've got plenty to get to, and the NFL injuries from across the league yesterday. 17-0 was the score for the Saints on the road in Green Bay. Green Bay comes back. By the way, that's in the fourth quarter. Green Bay comes back and wins 18-17 as Derek Carr goes out with a shoulder injury in the third on a sack. And let's just say what we saw from Jameis Winston was not the same as what we saw from Derek Carr to get things rolling for New Orleans.
A devastating loss for the Saints for the fact they were up 17-0 against a good team on the road, had a chance to get out to a 3-0 start this season, but also because of the injury. On the flip side, I thought Jordan Love was terrific in that comeback with some of the throws he was making. That was felt like a gigantic turning point moment for him. When they hit the field goal to take the lead, and he's, that emotion that he showed and the crowd, the connection with him and that Green Bay crowd, I don't know. It's one of those, I'm watching it live, and it felt bigger than a Week 3 win at home.
Yeah, he's taking advantage of and they did not play well offensively early on. Miscues, ill-advised throws, and also just drop passes.
Yeah.
And then they picked it up and got into a rhythm. The Saints had a chance to win, missed the field goal at the end, and also good news, bad news with Carr.
Yeah, the missed field goal when they celebrated.
Yes, the good news, bad news with Carr with a shoulder injury. He avoided a serious injury. Ian Rappaport saying that he seems to have avoided something that was extremely long-term and that was originally expected. He still could miss some time, but this does not appear to be a season-ending scenario. That is huge for New Orleans in that division. That's much more competitive than what we would have expected. Mike Williams, however, for the Chargers, out for the season with a torn ACL. One thing we always say about Williams, he's on the injury list.
Yeah.
And it's extremely unfortunate.
The number one ability, Hutton, is availability. And he doesn't have a lot of it.
The knee injuries and recovery time, Achilles with, recovery time for this, what used to be detrimental where you may not even be able to come back and play. Last week, Dr. David Chow came on Pro Football Talk and said, hey, what we saw with Nick Chubb, he may not be back at all in 2024. It may be a full season and a half before we see him back. And that's because the reports of all the ligament damage that was done and just the way the leg bent the opposite way. Turns out it may not be anything more than an MCL. I don't know how that's possible after what we saw. And the fact that they're saying now it's not career ending. And in fact, the recovery time for the MCL, and if it's just that, is far better than what was expected, where he could be back and be ready to go and by next year.
It defies the laws of physics.
I don't get it.
To think that the only thing that could be torn would be the MCL when that happens. I mean, it looked like his leg would not pivot in the right direction again, that his leg bent back.
And we saw what happened with him previously in 2015.
Yeah.
And the recovery time that took with the same knee. It's great news, and it's great news for the Browns. No matter how you look at it, this is huge for them moving forward. But also, without him, they had a dominant performance yesterday.
Yeah.
Dominant against the Tennessee Titans.
They're 2-1 with 2 AFC wins over Cincinnati and just a destruction of the Tennessee Titans yesterday, where we knew the defense was legit going into the season. Deshaun Watson was better. Wasn't perfect, but he was better in that game yesterday. If he can continue to improve,
his best game with the Browns.
And that's a good Titans defense that was, to me, pretty inexplicably bad at times in that game also. Just a miserable performance for the Titans, but great bounce back on a short week for the Browns with the playing on Monday Night Football.
Yes.
And having that happen with Nick Chubb to get that win, they're in a good spot right now in that AFC North.
Big win for the Chargers on the road against the Minnesota Vikings. We'll detail that coming up as well. Back to college football, we welcome in Davey Hudson from across the studio as we dive in, Davey, and discuss the rapid fire perception of programs off of what was a fun week 4.
That's right, Hud. I'm just going to name some programs for you, and you guys give me a 2 to 3 sentence answer about what we learned about this team this week, and we'll get this kicked off. The Ohio State Buckeyes.
Chad, they are growing in what is a young roster at key positions, and certainly not pretty, but they win the game in ugly fashion, and I think that also is something to point to. It's odd by day to so much cute when they were a play away from losing, but they go on the road in a massive environment, in a massive moment, and leave with a victory on the final play. I say they're growing together, and it starts at quarterback.
Yeah, mentally and physically tough. Other they played very physical on both lines of scrimmage, and I think mentally their offense did not impress me in this game, and I think it's still a work in progress and will get better. But they've got so much talent that they're going to be fine. And to win a game that way on the road in that environment where Notre Dame's trying to win their biggest game in 30 years is very impressive. So I'm impressed with the mental toughness.
Well, speaking of Notre Dame, they are the next team on our list.
Poorly coached. That's an unforgivable mistake. And I feel worse about it when, to me, he blatantly lies in the postgame about it and doesn't just own that they screwed up. They had back-to-back plays with 10 guys on the field, and the biggest moment maybe of their season, certainly of his coaching tenure so far. So they've got a good culture. I like Marcus Freeman. I like his presence on the sideline. He's calm, everything about him. But he's got to get better. He's got to improve. That's my big takeaway from that game for them.
Can't finish, not elite, bad loss. And I'm surprised to say bad loss even because it came on the final play against who could be the Big Ten champ and in the college football playoff. But a bad loss based on the circumstance of back-to-back plays.
Guys, a team that you could argue is not getting the attention that they deserve, but the Washington Huskies.
And I'll start here because
Yes,
I've been high on them throughout. 56, 43, 41, 59. Those are their point totals so far this year. And they have actually called off the dogs in multiple games so far. This offense is a revelation to watch. It depends on pinpoint accuracy from Michael Penix Jr. They are getting guys wide open down the field also. This guy can make every throw. Not the strongest arm ever, but puts it in the right spot every time. I love this offense. I like this Washington team a lot.
I would say they are a fun football team to watch, and they can beat anybody because they were up 14-0 before Michael Penix Jr. even took the field this past weekend.
Guys, we learned, you could say a lot about this team next on our list, but took overtime to defeat Clemson, but the Florida State Seminoles.
Chad, confusing.
Yeah.
Confusing team to me. I look at Florida State. They survived. They're not playing great. I don't know how to describe them from this standpoint. Do they have an edge? What's their identity? I can't describe that yet, but they continue to win despite that.
Yeah, it feels like a team that may get into the college football playoff by default at this point with the 2 games they've already won, the 2 Tigers they've beaten. And look, they've won both games away from Tallahassee.
That's right.
It's impressive. So I'm not trying to take anything away from them there, but the last 2 weeks combined, Boston College and now the overtime escape against Clemson, I'm not looking at them in the same light I do, let's say, some of these top Pac-12 teams that I think are just more impressive right now. So.
Right. I look at the second half against LSU is
very good.
That's it.
To sum it up, Davey, very good, not great. That's what I think of Florida State.
Guys, the Alabama Crimson Tide.
They got the win that they needed at the right time. If Ole Miss comes in there and wins in Tuscaloosa and they have back-to-back losses at home, who knows where we're headed with the storylines of this program. Good, not great. I would describe them the same way as Florida State.
They know who they are again. There's an identity. I think they lost it in that loss to Texas a little bit. Jalen Milroe's not going to set the world on fire with pinpoint accuracy, but he can win a game with his legs. He can hit some big shots down the field, too. And that defense is great. And I think they're only going to get better. They were great on Saturday. So Alabama is right back where Alabama always is. Chance to win the SEC West and go to the SEC Championship game.
A really great
It's all right in front of them now. And I think probably overly alarmed about that home loss to Texas because Texas looks really good.
Guys, Alabama was able to defeat the Ole Miss Rebels. What did you take from that?
Fewest points in an SEC game for Ole Miss under Lane Kiffin. They're 1-19 against Power 5 teams that ended the season with 9 or more wins. I just don't. I look at them as the middle of the pack, and they give Lane a raise based on that.
Yeah, they've hit their ceiling. I think Lane Kiffin has defined the ceiling for Ole Miss football under his leadership, and it's never going to be a team that wins a bunch of huge games in any given season against great competition. Their best win the last 2 or 3 years is in Knoxville against an unranked Tennessee team, 31-26 in the mustard bottle game.
I love their uniforms, but
they're not
not
winning many games bigger than that. So I think Florida State's very good, not great. I think Ole Miss is good, not very good.
Guys, going back out to the West Coast, the Oregon Ducks.
Elite on offense, really good on defense, and like Washington, they can beat anyone.
Different. And what I mean by the word different is it's different from what you'd expect from an Oregon football team. That's what I see in them. They're more physical. Defense is better. Dan Lanning's a bit of a different guy, also leading the program. And I love what I've seen so far.
And Deion Sanders in Colorado.
Ahead of schedule. Talented at the skill position. Incredibly thin. Both lines of scrimmage. Depth. a team that we've seen peak for this season. I don't think it's getting better for them in 2023, but it will get better for them in the future.
Incredibly thin in what is a deep conference right now.
Yep.
And it's just, if this were the Pac-12 from a couple of years ago, Colorado's in the mix despite this loss, but we know what's to come with that. Chad, coming up, Andy Staples joins us, and we will go across the national storylines, look ahead a bit as well, because now we've got the quarter of the season. We've got that snapshot of the 4 games and what we're seeing stack up and what's going to be a fantastic finish. And who knows, some 2-loss teams in the Big Ten and SEC could be skipped by the Pac-12. That's next.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
Is it fair for people to be upset with Barbie?
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose. I mean, what have you seen firsthand of how this has affected you in the plant and your fellow employees? Under Joe Biden, the Taliban has retaken Afghanistan. Putin has invaded Ukraine. So if there was ever a time for freaking aliens to inhabit and conquer Earth, now would be that time.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
There's no doubt in my mind he could have caught the ball in his back pocket if he'd been running. Blowing a lead and losing a game is 100 times more lasting and painful in some clubhouses than losing the game 15-0. If I had to start a list in the last 10 years of horrible underachievers, he's at the top.
We were directly impacted by the whole Leah Thomas thing, and we were able to see you guys on the ground with your signs supporting. That was huge.
They were saying, oh, it's only 1 or 2. That's rubbish, and we all know that's rubbish. Once those trans-identifying males were able to succeed, it just encouraged others.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Old taste of the Southern legend.
Just like that, the second hour is here, Monday edition. Hot Mic with Hunt and Withrow across the OutKick Network. Glad you're with us there. If you're joining us on YouTube, you can join Chad in the chat.
Chat's hopping.
It is. It is. Also, if you're listening to this great radio partner, we say thank you. 6th and Peabody with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine, our studio location. We say hello to Andy Staples of On Threes, the college football insider. You can also check out the Andy Staples Show on YouTube as well, which is also on fire. Andy, thanks for the time, man. Hope things are well.
All good.
How do you describe the two plays to finish Ohio State and Notre Dame?
Wild. And, 21 guys on the field. So don't see that very often. But that's what, I'm still in South Bend and heard Marcus Freeman talk about that today. I went up, visited with him in his office, and he was explaining, how he would handle that situation if it ever happened again. And it's one of the things where you remember, this guy's in his second year as a head coach. There's a lot of stuff that he hasn't encountered yet that, maybe the next time he encounters it, he'll be ready. And one of the things that he said is that they're going to have a signal now if they ever find themselves in that situation where the ball is down, on the far hash and they can't find, they realize they have not enough guys on the field and they need to stop the action because, they could have sent an 11th player on the field, but at the time, Ohio State is lined up and about to snap the ball. It wasn't like, so they threw an incomplete pass on that second down play. It wasn't like somebody came over the headset right then and said, we only have 10 guys. Nobody noticed until Ohio State was about to snap. And so you could send the 11th guy out, but if you do that, he's going to get caught on the wrong side of the line of scrimmage. They're going to drop a flag, and they're going to let the play continue. So even if you stop them, now you're going to have to stop them again. You gave him a free play. So they had to have a way to tell one of the defensive players to jump off sides and touch one of the offensive players because that would cause them to blow the play dead. So they're going to add it. They've added a signal now. If they ever get in that situation again, the corner nearest to them will get the signal and he will reach out and touch the wide receiver, and that'll draw the flag and stop the play.
Andy Staples with us. What about the first 10 men on the field, they didn't notice. Is that what Freeman's saying to you?
Yeah, they didn't know. They did not know, and they went into the next, calling the next play without realizing it. And it wasn't until everybody was all lined up that they figured it out.
What do you make, Andy, of Ryan Day immediately going to Lou Holtz in his post-game rant about what he said about Ohio State in this game?
I think it's because Lou Holtz was the most prominent person in the most prominent venue who said what a lot of people have said about Ohio State. And so the narrative that Ohio State is, I think soft would be the word that a lot of people would use. And I think Day has heard that a bunch. And he got, he got the prominent person saying it in a prominent venue, which was the Pat McAfee show on ESPN. And that's what he seized on because he's been waiting to say, we're not soft. See, we're not soft. This shows you we're not soft. Now, does it? That's for everybody else to figure out because what Notre Dame did to them in that last touchdown drive that gave Notre Dame the lead was a situation where Notre Dame had been pounding on them all game. Ohio State had held up against the run pretty well early, was not holding up against the run very well late. Well, that reminds you an awful lot of the last two Michigan games. So I don't know if it means that they have absolutely put that thing to rest. I think it means they're going to be challenged again by Penn State and Michigan, who have better defensive lines than Notre Dame does. Maybe not better offensive lines, but better defensive lines. And if you get in that situation against one of those two teams, do you punch it in?
Andy Staples with us, our guest from On3. And you can check out his show on YouTube through the On3 network. Andy, see if you buy this. And I realize he got the contract bump and pay bump last week, and that was announced for him at Ohio State. But saying it after Notre Dame instead of after Michigan, to me, tells me he's hearing the chatter about you got to beat Michigan, don't lose to Notre Dame, don't let it happen to where you're a two-loss team and the second loss is to Michigan if you get past Penn State as well. Is he feeling any heat whatsoever? I know he's saying this after the week where they're announcing that he's staying, but it was just odd that he chose that moment instead of Michigan.
Well, they didn't play Michigan. Well, what could he have said after they lost to Michigan last year?
Well,
so,
no, I'm saying
now.
I'm saying this year when they play Michigan later this year.
Michigan, he doesn't have to say anything. If they physically abuse Michigan, nothing needs to be said. But yeah, he hears it. I guarantee he hears
But I'm saying if they don't beat Michigan, then what difference does his comments make after Notre Dame?
Not a damn bit.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. I mean, he hears it because it's out there. It is the pervasive thought about Ohio State in this era. And they have to prove otherwise. And like you said, if they don't prove it against Michigan or Penn State, I don't know that anybody cares if they proved it against Notre Dame.
And Penn State is quietly still doing what they've been doing.
Yeah. No, and Penn State feels different this year because Drew Aller looks like he has a much higher ceiling at quarterback than they had with Sean Clifford. You know, the numbers didn't look great Saturday night, but they're playing in a driving rainstorm against one of the best defenses in the country, and he still threw 4 touchdown passes. I think Penn State has the potential to be the best team in the Big Ten. I don't know that they'll be able to beat Michigan and Ohio State, but they get Michigan at home, which, you know, they cannot beat them in Ann Arbor. They get killed in Ann Arbor, but they play them close in State College, and they play Ohio State close everywhere. So if Penn State is slightly better, then you'd think there's a chance they could win both those games.
I'm playing into the storyline here that I described earlier with Chad, but Oregon's dominance over Colorado is the same type of perception on the opposite side, a complete 180 of what I felt when Oregon was just drummed by Georgia. Knowing that all the eyeballs were on Oregon, what does that do for the perception of the Ducks now moving forward? And do you take Oregon or Washington as the top team?
I take Oregon, even though Washington beat them in Eugene last year, because I like the way Oregon's built on both lines of scrimmage. Now, Washington could completely prove me wrong by just torching Oregon because Washington's receiving core is incredible, and Michael Penix Jr. just throws the prettiest ball in America. But I feel like Oregon, starting when Mario Cristobal was the coach, but continuing as Dan Lanning has been acquiring players, I just feel like they're more physical than most of the teams in that league. I think Utah would be the other one that is that physical. Washington is good on both lines of scrimmage, but Oregon feels like they've got some elite talent. And I think Deion knew that was coming. I think if you go back to last week when somebody asked Deion about what Dan Lanning said earlier in the summer, and Deion's like, not saying a word. He's like, I'm not saying it's personal. I love the man, respect the man. Yeah, he knew what was coming. And so I think Oregon can not only beat Washington, I think they can win the Pac-12 and make the college football playoff. I think they're probably the Pac-12's best hope in the college football playoff because they're built the best to deal with these other teams. You know, USC, we saw against Arizona State, like the defense is still a problem. And I don't know that I trust them yet. I trust them to score 1 million points, but I don't know that I trust them to not give up 1 million points. Now, Washington may be able to prove me wrong, and we'll see when they play Oregon in a few weeks. You know, if Washington's defense can shut Oregon down, then we can probably say the same stuff about them.
Yeah, there was something about that Alabama loss to Texas, Andy, that just felt different for everyone watching when it happened in Tuscaloosa. There's something that felt very familiar about this win, easily pulling away from Ole Miss at home for Alabama and Nick Saban. Do they have their identity now? Do you feel like they're comfortable in that? And is that identity good enough for Alabama to win the SEC West this year?
I don't know if they're comfortable in it, but it certainly seems like that's what it is. And, you know, I'll be curious to see how the offense evolves now that they have settled on Jalen Milroe at quarterback, because it certainly felt like they were running an offense that looks more built around what he's good at. And, you know, the offense they were running earlier felt like, well, this is the offense we're running, and it'll work with any of the 3 quarterbacks we decide to play. This one feels kind of bespoke to his skill set. And, you know, I do think that's good enough to win the SEC West. If that game against LSU were in Baton Rouge, I may feel a little bit differently. But I do think Alabama, especially defensively, is good enough to slow LSU's offense down. And if you turn that into a game where they're just pounding on each other, I think Alabama's got a good chance to win it.
Andy, how do you describe Florida State? Do they have the edge? Do they have an identity right now?
I mean, I think they're probably the best team in the ACC right now. I don't know that necessarily means they're a national title contender. And you saw Clemson played a really good game against them. Clemson's got a bunch of good players, a bunch of NFL players, but I don't know that Clemson's as talented as who you might see in the playoffs. You know, a Michigan or an Ohio State or a Georgia. The question for Florida State is, can you hang against a team like that? And I don't know if we're going to get an answer to that. We've seen them now against probably the two most talented teams on their schedule, and they've won those games. So I think we probably just wait and see what happens next. So they still have to play Miami, and I think Miami is very improved on the offensive line, and they're playing really well. But I think they've beaten the two best teams on their schedule already.
So a couple of undefeated teams in the SEC. I want to ask you, Andy, which one we should be paying more attention to, Missouri or Kentucky?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think Kentucky probably. I think we'll see what they do against Florida this week, but they feel like they're getting, if they get a few things cleaned up, they have some random kind of scratch your head mistakes, like, snap issues, stuff like that. But they do seem to have the right pieces in place. They're really good at pressuring you on defense. They have some big dudes on their D-line. Their offensive line is better. They have breakaway threats in the backfield. Like Ray Davis can break a long touchdown run. And, they've got good receivers, Barry Brown and Dane Key. Devin Leary has targets to throw to. So they have everything they need, but they do some weird things sometimes. And so they need to put a complete game together against Florida. And look, Florida's coming off that win against Tennessee. Whoever wins this game, probably the inside track to being, the one notch below Georgia in the SEC East. So I think it's a pretty big one, and crazy to think about. Kentucky's trying to win 3 in a row against Florida after all those years when they couldn't beat them.
Andy Staples, our guest, who joins us from South Bend. So how do you keep up with all the games on Saturday in South Bend? Give us the rundown.
Well, the having the service that you can watch on your iPad and your phone and your computer helps a lot. And I mean, you can sit in the car and watch all those things in the parking lot before the game, or in the press box. You have everything sitting out before you. So when your game's in a timeout, you can glance down and see some other games. So it's actually not nearly as hard as it used to be. It used to be you're just following along play by play on the computer. Now you can see almost everything. So it's a lot of fun. God bless technology, because I got to see a lot more than I thought I would.
Andy, I see you and I automatically get hungry because of everything you've written about food across the country. Well, what is the go-to spot in South Bend for dining?
I think I might have a new one. I'm actually standing outside it right now. It's called Bourbon and Butcher. So it's actually the lunch place that is attached to a place where they also serve dinner. But it's basically it's a butcher shop. You can walk in, all the steaks are in a case, and it is basically the price of steak that you get at your normal butcher shop, but you pay an extra $5 and they'll cook it for you and give you a side for lunch. So I had like an 8-ounce filet for lunch, and it was delicious. They also do these dry-aged beef burgers. I might have actually ordered a burger too. And they bake their own buns. I mean, it's like everything is just absolutely perfect. So that was one I had not tried that before. It is in Mishawaka, which is suburban South Bend, and it's a gem. Like, I cannot believe this place is a mob 24 hours a day.
I knew you'd make me hungry. You did not disappoint. I'm starving now after hearing that review.
At On3 Sports on YouTube is where you can find the Andy Staples Show, which is it's awesome. Just subscribe there. Andy, thanks for the time, man, on short notice. We really appreciate it, and we'll catch up soon. Keep up the great work.
All right, my pleasure.
Yeah, man. Back to the butcher shop. Chad, you hungry now?
You got an 8-ounce filet, a side.
Quesadilla now?
And he got a hamburger.
Making you hungry?
Well, that sounds like an order I would have.
It does.
2 entrees and one side.
Chad once ordered beef heart.
I did. That was not my smartest order that I've ever made. I immediately started sweating when I ate it. I think I assumed the power of the beast
but it
that I was
wasn't,
eating. When you eat the
it wasn't
cow's
a dare.
heart, you assume the power of the cow.
Yes. It wasn't a dare, though. You just saw it on the menu. You're like, you know what? I'm going to try the beef heart.
It was a beef heart Reuben, to be exact. I do love Reubens, and I was like, you know what? If you just don't think about it being a heart, then it's probably good. It probably tastes just like corned beef, is what I was thinking.
It did not.
It didn't. It tasted very oily. The heart is a very oily organ
word for it.
in the cow. That's what I realized upon eating the beef heart.
I doubt Davey has tried that or anything like that.
No. Davey seems to
I
have
don't blame him for that.
a very delicate constitution.
I
is what I would
it.
say about how he eats.
Beef heart. I'm going to have to look
Chad,
that
you
one
know
up.
what I order, too. It's basically you could describe
Davey
it the
doesn't
same
eat
way.
cheese.
That's
well,
true.
that's fair.
Are
So
you like
I definitely don't think he's going to eat.
kind of guy?
Yeah, I think definitely doesn't eat beef heart. I'll eat anything. I'll try anything.
All types of protein I'm willing to give a chance.
So you're good with the proteins, just not dairy.
Very much so.
Have you had rabbit?
Yes.
Okay.
I have not.
Duck?
Yes.
Yes.
Elk?
Yes.
Yep.
Lots of times.
Lots of elk.
Wow.
All right.
I've never had buffalo.
Joe Rogan
or
over here.
bison. I've
Davey's
never
been
had
living on the
bison.
Oregon Trail all these years. Who knew?
Coming up,
He may have dysentery also.
we discuss the Broncos who were annihilated and what it means moving forward for Sean Payton.
Hey, good morning. The NFL has filed a grievance against the NFL Players Association over running backs being possibly coerced/coached into feigning injuries. That's right. Faking injuries is what the NFLPA suggested in memos to running backs whining about not getting guaranteed money. Well, let me tell you something. I don't blame the NFL. There are provisions in the collectively bargained agreement that say NFL players in general must give their best effort. Well, if you're telling NFL running backs to fake injuries, and have we seen NFL running backs fake injuries? I don't blame the NFL for getting a little crabby. Let's talk about it. Jonathan Taylor of my beloved Colts, he's out, had ankle surgery way back in November, still can't go. His agent said, however, that he could pass a physical right now. My thought is if Jonathan Taylor could, quote, pass a physical right now, why is he on the PUP? The agent said this a week or two ago. If he knew he could pass a physical, maybe you sit out a game or two. You don't go on a 4-game PUP. But here you see Tom Pelissero saying what a lot of us that were a little bit crabby of. Filed a grievance over allegations the union advised running backs to consider feigning or exaggerating injuries to gain leverage in contract talks, and seeking an order for the union to cease and desist from such improper conduct. I think Jonathan Taylor is absolutely faking. Look, I don't know. What do I know? I know this, though. Jonathan Taylor walked around pretty good at training camp. Jonathan Taylor's been whining about this. Jonathan Taylor and his agent, as I said, have already said, yeah, he could pass a physical. Let me tell you about Austin Eckler, an ankle injury with no timetable for return. Really? I coached for 30 years. A lot of guys with ankle injuries, high ankle injuries, tweaked ankles, you name it, and everything in between. And there was always a timetable for them to return. But all of a sudden, Austin Eckler, who is the most vocal of the running backs, I can't return. I got an ankle. See, ankles are tough because there is swelling, there is black and blue. You do know, but also when you get healed from an ankle and you take a bad step, a lot of times on a heel, it can hurt and there's no outward sign. It's like mental health. You can say, I got mental health. It's like verbal abuse. You can say a guy verbally abused me. You can say anything you want. So Austin Eckler, Jonathan Taylor, certainly there are questions. I did not see the Saquon Barkley injury live. I saw it many, many times on replay. I guess he's hurt. We'll see how long Saquon Barkley stays out. There are some legitimate guys that are hurt. I think we all agree Nick Chubb certainly hurt. I think J.K. Dobbins hurt. Aaron Jones seems to be hurt. Chase Edmonds seems to be hurt, but you see what I'm doing here between Eckler and Barkley and Chubb and Taylor and Edmonds and Dobbins and Jones. You got a lot of running backs hurt. Why would I, if this was in fact run like a business, give guaranteed money to NFL running backs? They just get hurt. And truthfully, the Colts just won a road football game with a running back. Zach Moss looked all right. Got into a hole? Okay, fine. There's not a chance in holy hell that I am giving money to an NFL running back that is guaranteed for anything longer than a year. I'll give you a year's guarantee. I'll give you a 3-year deal, 1-year guarantee.
Sixth and Peabody, our location with EHOP Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Glad you're with us. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick network. Chad, Joe Burrow trending in the right direction, according to The Athletic, to play Monday Night Football. Optimism, Burrow will play, and his status for Monday night's game against the Rams in the right direction per sources through The Athletic. Burrow campaigning with the coaching staff and trainers to play, but his game status remains uncertain. And he, of course, uncertain because he re-injured the calf in their loss to the Ravens last week.
This surprises me, honestly. I thought they'd take a step back with him, given their start and given how he's looked and how physically uncertain he's been at times. I'm surprised that if he goes tonight, that'll surprise me.
They've elevated Reed Stinnett from their practice squad, so he's available for them tonight. Jake Browning, of course, their backup. And did I see where A.J. McCarron is also a part of all this, potentially, for the Bengals yet again?
When was A.J. McCarron last with the Bengals? Do we know? When he went away?
2020 or 2021, because he spent this past season, he was in the XFL, I think.
I guess knows the system, so can step back in.
Yeah, but at least he was at the facility visiting over the weekend. That was a report. And again, there was also a report circulating that they were considering putting Burrow on IR. Did you see this?
Yeah.
Which he would be out for a minimum of 4 weeks at that point. And you have to sit back and wait for your quarterback to get healthy. But at that point, where they are record-wise, their season's pretty much done. David, did you find something over there with McCarron?
No. The last time McCarron was with the Bengals was actually 2017.
Oh, it's been that long.
Yeah.
Where was he?
So
he was
doesn't
in
know the
Houston.
system.
He was in Houston.
He was drafted by the Bengals, and then he spent time with the Bills, Raiders, Texans, Falcons, and then, of course, who could forget the St. Louis Battlehawks?
He is on their practice squad. They've signed him over the weekend. So Stinnett is going to be elevated, and McCarron is not.
I'm just surprised. I'm surprised. Having watched Burrow play, this feels like hey, go out there and give it one more shot, and if you're still not quite yourself, then we'll put you on IR.
They may also, by elevating Stinnett, they may be telling us that they're not going to play him.
Yeah.
They can make him inactive.
I'd be surprised if he
because
plays.
Browning's the backup, and he's the only other quarterback on the roster. You would need someone else if you're not going to play Burrow. But you could also have Burrow as your emergency quarterback. You can name him your emergency QB if you wanted to, based on that, based on the new rules. Again, I'm with you. I wouldn't push it, but they've got to start winning games.
Yeah.
That's the biggest issue.
I think if he does go tonight, which we don't know yet, but if he goes, he looks hobbled, and they lose, and they're 0-3, that's going to make the decision. It's not going to be an easy decision either way, but I think that pushes them more towards IR, get this thing right for a month, and then come back.
Chad, we got 2 games tonight for Monday Night Football.
My favorite, the Monday Night doubleheader.
Yeah, and if you're looking for reasons to tune in and go back and forth, more than just the excitement that Chad uses for using the
So
ABC
excited.
to ESPN, head over to PointsBet and do that through OutKick.com/bet.
By the way, I got ABC back, Hutton.
Oh, you got it?
Yeah.
Oh, Chad can do both.
Randomly on Saturday, I decided not to go to the ESPN app and just went over to ABC to watch. It was Clemson, Florida State on ABC this weekend. And, I mean, it was a eureka moment. Turned back and boom, there it is. Game's on. They're back, baby. After 5 months of a standoff between Nexstar and DirecTV, they're back. They finally figured it out.
And we didn't know until football season rolled around. Right now, new PointsBet users can get up to $1,000 in second chance bets. If your first bet doesn't go as planned, PointsBet has your back with a second chance. Get this offer by visiting OutKick.com/bet. Complete the registration process with PointsBet. Make your first bet. If your first bet happens to lose, that's when the second chance bets come into play. Remember, terms and conditions apply. You got to be 21 or older in legal gambling states. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. OutKick.com/bet is where you can snag this offer. Chad, last year, the Broncos dominated the football headlines for the wrong reasons. Right? They were almost the court gesture. They were the comedy, the clown. And specifically,
everyone wanted them to make them a bicycle, like Vince Vaughn. Make me a bicycle
when you were
clown.
done,
That's what we were saying to Nathaniel Hackett.
When you were done discussing, the top teams, you turned your attention to the bottom and had topics and discussion about that and how they were going to get it fixed. Is Hackett in over his head? Is he going to get fired midseason? What's wrong with Russell Wilson? He's not the same guy. That was the storyline. It's about to pick up even more in Denver, because Sean Payton was the fixer. He was brought in to fix Wilson and fix the Broncos. He wanted Vic Fangio to run his defense. Fangio chose Miami instead, running their defense. And what we saw in the clinic that was put on in South Beach, in Miami Gardens, posting 70 points on the Broncos, and the points allowed over the last 2 weeks to Washington and Miami combined. After everyone gets done praising Miami for 70, you look to the next storyline. And the storyline is Sean Payton, Russell Wilson, and the Denver Broncos, who take on Chicago this coming week. And then in week 5, the New York Jets against Zach Wilson and Nathaniel Hackett. It could get worse, and it probably will, because Payton's not handling it well publicly. He's already asking reporters what their question is, when the question is, how can this happen? 70 points in an NFL game, especially to Sean Payton's Denver Broncos, not Nathaniel Hackett's Denver Broncos. It can get really bad. It can get worse. And it's already worse than it was last season in what was a dumpster fire of 2022. And it's about to mount, because already a bad team facing back-to-back bad teams, and one of them has a great defense in New York. You can't lose to Chicago, because you come in 0-4 in week 5 hosting the Jets after all that chatter about Hackett and how you're doing anything other than what they did a year ago. I can't believe it, but it is absolutely worse than where they bottomed out in 2022. Broncos fans, they're not riding. They're off the wagon right now, and I don't blame them.
Instead of let's ride, Broncos country, let's ride, it's Broncos country, let's die together. That's what it looks like right now.
Let's bail.
I would have given anything if the person that said, what's the question, if they'd have followed up with, my question is, why are you the way that you are? That would be my question. Based on this defensive output or lack thereof that I just highlighted from today's game. Crazy, crazy bad moment for that Sean Payton. There was another Sean that had a great weekend in his call of a game, and that is Sean McDonough of ESPN with one of the best mic drop slip-ins that I don't think Greg McElroy, who I know and really like, completely caught when he said it.
Okay.
But here is audio of the moment that what would have been an amazing underdog story of a Clemson kicker coming back to the team before taking a job in New York City, had been away from the team for a while. When he had his opportunity to hit the game-winning kick, here's the call from Sean McDonough.
He made a 30-yard field goal to start the scoring today. He's made 3 extra points. Dabble Sweeney said it's either going to be great or terrible. This This would be the ultimate greatness. Middle of the field from the 20-yard line. A 30-yard kick. And it is no good. Mom, Lisa, the White's family, Jonathan, the dad, they can't believe it.
Wow. Perfect snap, perfect hold, good contact. Unfortunately, though, that left foot angled just a little bit wide. And he pulls that ball just outside the left upright. What would have been a Hollywood ending.
Well, the writers are on strike.
Terrific. Sean McDonough, great job. Well, would have been a Hollywood ending. Well, the writers are on strike. Great knowledge of current events by Sean McDonough. Funny. Not funny for Clemson fans, I'm sure, in the moment, but just a terrific drop-in line by Sean McDonough. And, hey, I read this morning that it looks like the writer's strike is about to be over, which would signify Hollywood being back in business because I believe most actors are simply striking to show solidarity with the writers, so then they'll be back. But Sean McDonough needed no writers, needed no writing team for that great drop. That was a crazy story, though, with White's, the kicker for Clemson.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever watched that, but when he kicked the first one, he was in Charleston taking online classes at Clemson. Because my first thing was, well, how is he back? Is he a student?
Right.
Because he'd left the team. He was a backup kicker. They brought him back because he was taking online courses for Clemson. He's accepted a job in New York City with a financial management firm. His boss at the job in New York, he's got his apartment picked out, everything. His boss said that he could go kick for Clemson, and he'd still have his job when he was done with that. So he goes to Clemson from Charleston, joins the team on Thursday or Friday, and ends up in that moment. And he had made his kick before, but missed the big one there in the end. And Florida State goes on to win in overtime.
Clemson has given up 36 points off turnovers in 4 games. They gave up 38 total last year.
Such an anticlimactic fourth down play for Clemson. On that 4th and 2 in overtime, it looked like miscommunication. It was thrown so far off the mark.
So it's just an odd way for them to lose too, Chad, because if you go back to 2015, 77%, that was the percentage of one-score games that they win. The best in the country in that time span. And now they're just not doing that. They've lost consecutive home games for the first time since 2010 as well.
Yeah, and I still think, I watched the game and I'm thinking, and Clemson is still good.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got good players. They had every opportunity to win that game against Florida State, who's a top 5 opponent. It's not like they're just falling off the face of the planet Earth. It's just that we had come to expect such a high bar from them to lose none or one game a year and win the ACC, that when they lose multiple games in a season, it's a story. It's a credit to Dabo Swinney and the program that he built that it's such a big story. But now they're 2-2 already at this point in the season, and they are 0-2 in the ACC. That's not normal for any Clemson program. So we're talking about, I still think they're a good team that's going to win 8 or 9 games this season, at least, but they're not the Clemson that we became accustomed to.
And described in the same way and probably better is Bama. And we saw that on display against Ole Miss this weekend. And specifically the second half. Bama destroyed Ole Miss in the second half. Bama ran 29 plays and averaged 8.3 yards per play and scored 18 points. Ole Miss, 37 plays instead of 29, 148 yards instead of 241 like Bama got, and 4 yards per play, they scored 3 points. Over the final 30 minutes, they were doubled up by Alabama. That's a get-right game for Bama, and same old storyline for Lane Kiffin and the Rebels.
Yeah, a lot of talk, not enough delivery from Lane Kiffin during the week. Of course, question who was actually calling defensive plays for the Tide, whether it be Kevin Steele or Tavares Robinson, who's on that staff, has said he thought it was not Steele that was calling plays. Shout out to Emily Grace McWhorter with our friends with Next Round Live in Birmingham. She asked the question to Lane Kiffin, can you tell who was calling plays after that game? Who do you think was calling plays now when they completely shut down Ole Miss? Which was a great question to ask because he talked all week about it wasn't, and he just gave an answer, said, whoever it was, they did a great job. I mean, clearly, they've got it together now, and they're doing a really good job. Very respectful after the game, but Lane Kiffin knows what he's doing when he says that stuff during the week, and it did not affect Alabama in the least. It may have helped them a little bit, in fact. So Ole Miss continues to be a team that's good under Lane Kiffin. He's completely secure in his job status there. Others will probably come after him. I just think, Hutton, we've seen the ceiling for Ole Miss football.
He's making 9.3 or 9.
Yeah. I think that Ole Miss is perfectly content to pay him 9.3 if it equals 8 or 9 wins a season.
Yeah.
As long as he stays on that track, they're going to be just fine.
But you also realize what Bama is this year compared to years past, and this was the time to go. 2 years ago, we were in Tuscaloosa.
Yep.
And Crimson Tide fans went into Bryant-Denny Stadium like they were going to church. They were there to tithe. It was their time to worship the Alabama Crimson Tide. They knew they were winning. This year, they're going into the stadium not knowing, even with this Ole Miss team.
Yeah.
There's a difference there.
I also think there's a chance that you could, that church feeling you got going into the game
very solid
with Alabama fans, also just so
not nervous at all.
Used to winning.
Yeah.
You know, you don't even consider a loss at home with Alabama football. That loss to Texas and a little, 2 losses a year ago, which none of them were at home, but the 2 losses a year ago, that could snap that fan base into a state of hunger that we haven't seen in a while from Alabama fans.
And it's coming off of that South Florida performance.
There could be a different level of volume. Let's say if Tennessee beats South Carolina and A&M and Tennessee goes in there with 1 loss, that could be a charged up, hostile environment in that game given what happened last year in Knoxville. We haven't seen that a lot from Alabama because they win every time.
We have not. We saw Taylor Swift in the box with Travis Kelce's mother. Plus, that's my quarterback next.
I'm here at the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix, but that's not the only big race that's on people's minds. Let's go talk about it.
There's no way Biden can win again. There's just no way. Even the people that voted for him because they didn't like Trump now at least have to see like senile, not all there. Probably won't be alive for 4 more years.
Are you a Trump guy? Or are you a DeSantis guy? Or someone else?
I don't like any of them.
Who's your dream candidate? Who would you want to run?
Myself. I think the best candidates probably are smart enough not to run.
I just hope there's somebody that's young enough to care about the country instead of their politics.
My fear is they get Gavin Newsom from California. I think it would be the new cool vote for the younger people, and that's what I don't like.
Who do you think on the Republican side would be able to take on Gavin Newsom?
Great question. As a Republican registered, I love what Trump's body of work did, but they're just out to get him and destroy him, and we won't get things done, which is crappy for me to say. I thought DeSantis was going to be the guy. Trump only has 4 years left. He cannot fix everything that just happened in 4 years. And he's going to be battling indictments and all these false stuff for the next 4 years. We won't get anything done. And it'll just be the stalemate in America. That's why I almost don't want him in. But if he is the leading candidate, that's who I'm going to vote for.
Is there any Democrat that you would vote for, consider voting for? Absolutely not. Yeah. What about RFK Jr.? No. Who should our first female president be?
Michelle Obama, of course.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to go with Harambe 2024.
We have the 2024 presidential race coming up, and I wanted to see who you thought your favorite TV characters would vote for. Homer Simpson, who do you think he would vote for?
Donald Trump, all the way.
Vito Corleone.
Whoa. Whoever advances the cause of the Corleone family. Yeah.
Tony Soprano. If Tony Soprano is voting in the 2024 election, who do you think he's voting for?
I'm going to go Ron DeSantis.
Okay. Why do you think that?
Just seems like a Ron DeSantis kind of guy.
Is this a meatball joke that you're trying to make right now? What about Homer Simpson?
Homer would vote for Biden because he's a dope.
Who do you think Napoleon Dynamite would vote for?
That's a good question. I actually don't know.
There's a right answer here.
He's voting for himself or Pedro.
There's a Viking show, I think.
Okay.
Maybe that's Hulu. I don't know.
So in the Viking show, whatever the main character is, who do you think they would vote for in 2024?
Probably a goat or a dog.
I think we have one of those in office right now. So who do you think Jon Snow would vote for in this upcoming election?
I'm going to say Donald J. Trump.
Why do you think so?
Because Game of Thrones is all about drama, and Trump comes with the drama, baby.
Would you vote for Trump from jail?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably. Because at that point, what else do you have to lose?
Okay, would you vote for Trump from a jail cell?
Hell yeah, baby. I will get Trump out of jail.
Would you vote for Trump in jail?
Oh, yeah.
Based as
The thing that Trump needs to remember is there's another political figure that said, I don't recall very well. Yeah. And that's all he's got to say.
Is there like a dream candidate, someone that you think could like save us all?
Yeah, Jesus.
Amen to that.
Chad, we have the new NFL version of Brady and Giselle. Every time, every game, we watch the Patriots or the Bucs. The camera's going to find Giselle. Over/under props on Super Bowl camera angles and shots of Giselle. Now it's going to be Taylor Swift. Was it about?
It's going to be far more on Taylor Swift.
Was it
Giselle,
about? No doubt. Was it about 2 months ago when all this buzz and chatter started with Travis Kelce saying that
it was summer months about the friendship. What did she do? Friendship bracelets, right?
And Kelce wanted to get backstage and put his phone number on a friendship bracelet or whatever,
and he couldn't do it. And then he was complaining about it on his show.
But 2 months later, she's sitting in the box with Kelce's mom.
Yeah, I can't. Like, are they really together, or is this publicist putting them together as a joke?
You don't go. I don't think Taylor Swift is showing up and sitting with his mom.
Yeah. No, you're
right.
True. Unless there's it doesn't.
They're together.
Here's the deal. Travis Kelce's a big deal. Taylor Swift is a global icon. Taylor Swift is a far bigger deal than Travis Kelce. Now, she can't find many celebrities on her page, right? If you're going to go celebrity route, like there's not many guys that would be available that's even in her vicinity from a celebrity standpoint. Travis Kelce is a superstar NFL player, and that is the biggest league in the United States.
How long?
So that's a big deal for both of them, but I feel like it's Taylor Swift kind of going down a notch in celebrity. But she can't go up, is my point. Or she can't go even with celebrity.
Date the Pope? I mean, I don't know how
exactly. Trump?
Yeah, I don't know how you...
I don't know who's bigger.
Yeah, I mean, so, yeah, props to Kelce.
I mean...
He shot his shot, and 2 months later, she's in Kansas City at Arrowhead watching the Chiefs destroy the Bears.
I was looking down and saw a tweet during the game from Clay saying that Kelce needs to fire his marketing reps because of the bad decision to endorse Pfizer and Bud Light. And I'm like, the dude's dating Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
That's his marketing rep also.
Kid Rock is drinking Bud Light now.
Yeah, that's his marketing team also. I got to ask Clay about that when he comes on with us. I'm like, dude, something's going right here because I'm watching the game. I'm reading the tweet from Clay, and I've got one eye on the tweet, and my left eye is seeing T Swift in a damn suite next to Kelce's mom, and I'm like, hey, that Pfizer money must really, those Pfizer checks must clear because the guy's got Taylor Swift on his arm walking out of the locker room together.
It's
pretty incredible.
It is. And how about the Chiefs?
I love it, too.
Destroying Chicago.
I love it because if they start playing poorly, whether warranted or not, people are going to blame Taylor Swift. Football fans will blame her as the Yoko Ono of the Kansas City Chiefs' possible dynasty if they start going south.
Chad, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. Their next 3 games, Jets, Vikings, Broncos. It's the perfect time to unveil Taylor Swift in the box.
Remember when Jessica Simpson and Tony Romo dated?
Oh, wow. No, I do remember.
And everyone called her Yoko Romo because, remember, they went on a vacation in the bye week? They went to Mexico or something, and they got spotted together.
Yeah.
And they came back and Romo sucked. And suddenly Jessica Simpson was Yoko Romo. I'm telling you, Taylor Swift will be seen as the poison to the Chiefs dynasty if they don't play well. Now, if they get on a roll here, she's going to be given credit for it. Dylan, before the show, Dylan Taylor, who works with us here at OutKick, said that there was a tweet about if you thought that NFL fans could do some digging, wait until Swifties get a hold of something negative from the league to Travis Kelce. They're going to uncover so much dirt on Roger Goodell via the internet if that happens, because they're going to be defending Travis Kelce.
Someone was saying that a lot of her fans hated one of her recent boyfriends or something. Like they hated that she was with someone.
I got to find out who she was with before. I haven't since John Mayer, which has been a long time.
That's been a while.
And there was also the DJ guy. I'm blanking on his name.
Davey, you have the list.
Davy's got
it's Joe Alwyn. He's a British actor.
Joe Alwyn?
Yeah, he was known. His first film was Billy Lynn's Halftime Walk.
Anything that anyone's seen that he's been in.
He's not that type of actor. He's like
he's a stage performer.
Well, no, it's more of
he only does stuff that no one watches. Is what you're saying?
For the most part, yeah.
Joe Alwyn, looking him up now. Good-looking guy.
Chad, are you saying that
he's 6'1"? Always look at height with these guys.
If you're dating
6'1".
down, is this lower than Kelce?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So I mean, this is.
Say that name of that movie one more time, Davey.
I said it wrong the first time. It's Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk.
All right. Never heard of that?
It's about.
I've never heard of it.
I haven't.
They advertised for it, I think, at the Super Bowl several years back because he plays a military veteran. I've still never seen the movie, but that is doing this walk for the Super Bowl halftime show, and then it kind of like has flashbacks to his.
Is that how Taylor met Kelce?
No, but here's what's going to happen though. The next album she releases is going to be about Travis Kelce.
Oh yeah, well he's opened himself up to a lot of.
Yeah,
I would be a little nervous too because her fans are so crazy.
Well, I mean,
that like if they perceive,
I feel like mentally, like John. You mentioned John Mayer. I feel like John Mayer can't be in a relationship very long either because he's got to write an album and he needs to, write about a breakup. I think that's what she does.
It's sort of her MO at this point.
The next one will be about Kelce. No breakup with him and Mahomes.
If Vegas sets the over/under, do they make it through the season?
Yes. Yep.
I think so too. Because I think there's
2 months after he was trying to give her a friendship bracelet with his phone
there's
number.
Going to be that carrot out there too from Kelce of, I'm going to have so much more downtime once the season's over. I'm going to really be able to dedicate some time to you, Taylor.
I think this is a good
opportunity. We're going to go on trips together. It's going to happen then.
By the NFL scriptwriters to where the Chiefs will be back in the Super Bowl. She'll dump him right before the Super Bowl.
She'll be watching Usher
Chiefs
at the
will
halftime
lose,
show.
and everybody will blame Taylor. So.
Well, the best case scenario, if I'm writing the script here, the writers I think still are technically on strike, but coming off of it, Sean McDonough knows. If I'm writing the script for the NFL, they stay together through this Super Bowl halftime show with Usher to next year. Break up before the Super Bowl that Kelce's in, and then America is already watching, but they watch even more to see if she has a diss for Travis Kelce at the halftime show. She's performing it. That's what you want to see, Hutton.
Haley chimes in for us, Chad, and says she was most recently dating Matt Healy from the 1975. That's who the Swifties hated. I knew that they hated someone. That relationship did not last long, and...
Why did they hate him?
They just didn't like him.
He's an English singer-songwriter and record producer.
Yeah. We should be on to the next one soon. But Kelce's going to have a song now.
I thought she was with the Alwyn guy for several years.
Yeah, that was the long-term one. But it was most recently Matt Healy. And then Kelce stole her from, I don't know. This is, again, get ready for the next love song. And then the breakup song.
Has she been with an athlete before? Because this, I think, is the first dive into the athletic genre for her. She's been everything else, right? Musician, DJ, record producer, actors. Has she been with like just a mogul of some sort, just a billionaire guy? I don't know.
She can have whoever she wants.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Kelce's been touched by the hand of God. in this whole deal. It's like he was chosen out of a group.
Joe Jonas.
Okay, I'm gonna
Jake Gyllenhaal. Harry Styles. Tom Hiddleston. Calvin Harris. Let's see.
Calvin Harris was the DJ guy I was thinking of.
Okay. Drew Hardwick. Yeah, the list goes on and on.
And they're age appropriate too, right? They're about the same age.
No idea.
Her and Kelce.
No clue.
Kelce is 33. Let's see T Swift. I want to say she's 34. So a younger man. Taylor Swift, 33. They're the same age. How about that? Taylor liked the older guys for a while when she was with John Mayer.
She likes
Jake
inspiration.
Gyllenhaal?
Very inspiration.
Jake Gyllenhaal, much older?
Inspiration comes from these relationships.
No.
Next
well,
song.
it comes from being dumped or wronged in some way. So if Travis doesn't do that, maybe she'll never make another album again. Will the Swifties start to hate Travis Kelce if she's so happy she doesn't want to work and doesn't put new music out in the world?
I did see she's got the world tour kicking off where she's going to South America next, coming up. And I think that's next month.
That'll be tough for
November.
Their relationship will be really tested.
It will.
During that time. When she's doing 4 stadium nights in Rio, back to back to back to back. That's going to be tough for Travis.
And Kelsey's having to travel to Minnesota instead.
Kelsey's in Buffalo.
Yeah. It is time for That's My Quarterback.
It's my quarterback.
Davey's bringing back the sunglasses as well. Well done for T.O.
I love it.
All right, guys. A lot of life is about timing. Timing is everything when you boil it down. And so for this version of That's My Quarterback, time is the key thing to focus on. And our first one, it's just time for a new team.
Chad?
You want to start?
Yeah, sure. The time for the new team is Ryan Tannehill. He is battered, bruised, beaten up last year, and same song, different verse this year for the Titans quarterback, who's going to be playing elsewhere, most likely, and he should want to, a year from now. I would want to go play in Atlanta with Arthur Smith, for instance, or possibly Minnesota whenever they ditch Kirk Cousins after this year. But playing behind this Titans offensive line is going to have Tannehill not just in the offseason looking for a team, but on the opposite end of his career, finding out what he wants to do in retirement, because that's how much he's getting hit to start this season.
Yeah, I think it's Kirk Cousins. That 0-3 start, not good for the Vikings. We know that he's going to be moving on after this year. He's still got some things left. He made some good throws in that game yesterday. I don't think he's done, but he needs a new team.
All right, guys, some people might need a new team, but who just needs a new profession?
Zach Wilson. The opportunity has been there. It has not been grabbed by the backup Jets quarterback to begin the year, the first 4 snaps, but the starter that they didn't want, that they're refusing to move on from. It's clear he's not starting material for the NFL.
Yeah. This is a tough one because most of the guys starting in the league that aren't very good are younger guys that I think could still probably be a good backup somewhere else. So it's pretty harsh to say new profession. But if we're going just by on-field results, it's Justin Fields.
Well, I would also just say let's see him with a offensive-minded head coach. But here's the thing about Wilson.
Again, I don't think.
Here's the thing about Wilson.
My answer is no one. I'm saying if we're just going by that, he's going to play somewhere else, but it would be
the difference between Wilson and Fields for me is the defense. That New York Jets defense gave up 15 points and lost, and did it last year too, where they only allowed 3 to the Patriots and lost. Zach Wilson's the quarterback of both of those losses. Meanwhile, the Bears, they've allowed 25 or more points each of their last 13 games going back to last year. That's asking a lot from a young quarterback that doesn't have much around him for the first 2 years of his career.
And, guys, finally for today, it's time to win it all. This quarterback has everything he needs around him, and it's just a matter of time before he should at least be able to take him to the promised land.
I want to say Justin Herbert, but he doesn't have what he needs around him due to the head coach and the defense. The answer is Jalen Hurts, because everything is rocking and rolling, and we'll see it on display later tonight.
I'm shocked I'm giving this answer. It's Tua. I think it's now. I'm not going to say now or never, but now's a good enough time for Tua. If he can stay healthy this year, that offense is incredibly good. Their defense, I think, is good enough. and he's definitely got the weapon. He's got some of the fastest guys in the sport surrounding him on that offense, and they work it well. Give me Tua.
Let me find this one note on the fastest guys in the sport. You're right to bring this up, Chad.
It's Tyreek Hill. The guys who've run the fastest on the field I saw.
Yeah.
Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Devin Achane. It's like 5 of the top 6.
Raheem Mostert. So they have the fastest time players, the fastest top 6 ball carriers in the season so far. Achane, Hill, Mostert, and those are the 3 that
Waddle
are
too. Right?
Waddle's not listed.
Okay.
No. But, I mean, Waddle is fast.
Also
You're
fast.
correct.
Quote John C. Reilly.
Their entire roster is fast.
I'm just saying, sometimes you get a knock on the head, you get special powers. It happens all the time. Read a comic book, okay?
I feel like the entire team was knocked on the head the way they're playing this year, too. They all have special powers. Davey, stick with the glasses. Permanently.
Yeah, the entire show.
Permanently.
Another hour left.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
Is it fair for people to be upset with Barbie?
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose. I mean, what have you seen firsthand of how this has affected you in the plant and your fellow employees? Under Joe Biden, the Taliban has retaken Afghanistan. Putin has invaded Ukraine. So if there was ever a time for freaking aliens to inhabit and conquer Earth, now would be that time.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
There's no doubt in my mind he could have caught the ball in his back pocket if he'd been running. Blowing a lead and losing a game is 100 times more lasting and painful in some clubhouses than losing the game 15-0. If I had to start a list in the last 10 years of horrible underachievers, he's at the top.
We were directly impacted by the whole Leah Thomas thing, and we were able to see you guys on the ground with your signs supporting. That was huge.
They were saying, oh, it's only 1 or 2. That's rubbish, and we all know that's rubbish. Once those trans-identifying males were able to succeed, it just encouraged others.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Bold taste of a Southern legend.
Just like that, the final hour is here. Monday edition, Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick Network. Glad you're with us. 6th in the Peabody location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Chad, Joe Burrow, a game-time decision. That coming through the some pregame information from Monday Night Football through Laura Rutledge. So we'll see. I feel like Dr. David Chow, Pro Football Doc, told us 1 week off isn't really going to help. Like it's a long period of time if you want this to just go away. And you had to come back 100% to begin the year whenever he started his season, week 1, week 3, whenever. Because if you push it back and you show up not ready to go health-wise, it's going to be a lingering issue all year. And it's definitely, even when he's playing the first couple of weeks, he's in the pocket. He's not doing very much of, as far as the mobility, doesn't allow him to with the calf issue.
Yeah, I'm going to be surprised if this isn't a long-term thing, unfortunately, for Cincinnati. We'll see tonight. Maybe he goes out there, game-time decision, and plays and looks, 100% or close to it.
Maybe.
And it's no issue. But to me, this is headed towards he is going to be put on the shelf until it's completely right. And that could be a month.
Well, after you start stacking losses,
then
you could do that. But Wes, Tank Williams is coming up in 20 minutes.
It becomes a throwaway season at some point.
Yeah. Tank Williams, NFL analyst, former NFL safety, joins us in 20 minutes. So the AFC was already stacked, right? You've got Burrow hurt. Who knows exactly the significance of the calf issue and when it's going to allow him to be Joe Burrow on the field, because it's definitely holding him and the offense back. Rodgers is hurt, done for the year. Who steps into those spots now? AFC South is a mess. And New England's winning, but not against good teams. Buffalo seems to be back on track. And across to the AFC West, you've got coaches who are making some crazy decisions, like Josh McDaniels, kicking a field goal down 8 instead of just going for it, trying to get the tie on a one-possession game. He made it 2.
He looks completely lost.
Yeah.
Out there. I'm watching that game last night. I'm thinking, this guy doesn't look certain of anything when he's on the sideline coaching. Very disappointing.
When he's trying to explain it post-game. Again, just nonsensical with that move. Big weekend for college football. Some really great matchups. Big weekend for the Pac-12. And we'll get to a surprise team in a moment. But there are 5 remaining unbeaten teams in the Pac-12. And if they don't knock each other out throughout the course of the rest of the year, they're going to have 2 teams in the playoff. I mean, the percentage chance of that happening is strong based on the attention they're getting due to Colorado and now Oregon winning in blowout fashion, paired with the fact we got USC this week. Washington's already doing it, and they've done it through the Big Ten this year too. Utah's defense is for real. Only allowed 7 points against UCLA. They handled Florida easily. And I like where Utah will be when they get Cam Rising back. But also just look at the depth. Oh, and they play Oregon State, by the way. Utah does Friday night. I wonder if that will be on the top 10 college football games of Withrow's list on Friday.
I've yet to have a Friday night game make the list, so this might be the first one.
But the depth of the conference in the middle is what may worry the potential of the 2-team Pac-12 champ, plus either the loser or the team that lost in the regular season to the champ getting in, because I do think there will be some surprise losses along the way. Washington State is one of the teams, Chad, that is right there, and they are playing some really nice football. Got another big win.
Davey, do we have audio of this rant from Dickert? I don't think we do, looking at the audio on here.
No, we do. We have it.
Oh, we do have this. Okay. So this was Jake Dickert, head coach of Washington State. So much is made about the Pac-2, right? And no one caring, and they got completely left behind. And there's nothing fair about it. There's nothing right about it, especially in a season where these two programs are incredibly relevant and very, very good teams. Yep. To go out this way and be the last two standing that don't really have a home, they're not wanted by anyone. Well, that sparked some comments from Lee Corso, where on College Game Day he said, this is the no one wants us, no one wants to watch bowl. between these two. So Jake Dickert was talking about his team and his program and defending it while also talking about Lee Corso. This was after their win over Oregon State on Saturday night.
Our team is greater than the sum of its parts. I saw a tweet again today. We got 0 5 stars, 0 4 stars. We got 0, right? But we're greater than the sum of our parts because of our connection and how we play and the buy-in that they have to their job. And I think it speaks volumes for 18 to 23-year-old young men to buy into that. It's not easy. And, I just told RJ and BJ to come back for year 6. This is why they came back. Okay, this is much on them and it is on us and what we're trying to create because of those guys and their leadership. So we're building something special. I think nationally there's a lot of noise out there. I mean, I caught something this morning and I was just watching game day, and Corso comes on and he says, the no one watches bowl, and I don't really understand that. What's the merit once again? Because the facts say people watch the Cougs. And the people watch the Cougs more than every team that's left over in the Big 12. Okay, so Coach Corso, he's at the point now where they give him the sheet and he reads off of it and they try to make a joke, but it didn't even make sense. Okay, it's well documented what ESPN has done to try to, get our league into where it's at. And I would love to have a conversation with Coach Corso about the value that he sees in breaking up the premier West Coast Conference. Okay, and I'd also love to have a conversation with Coach Corso about how he thinks, student athletes and mental health and flying them all over the country is a positive thing. I'm open to those conversations.
I think this was a masterclass in how to handle an issue you might have with something as a head coach, as opposed to Ryan Day, who to me came across as more of an emotional mess about Lou Holtz right after his team's win. And I think it would have come across different had it not been on the field right after that win for Ohio State, if he took his shot in the press conference to follow. I love what Dickert had to say about this. And I get it. If you're him and you're leading that program, it's got to be troubling to hear these types of things.
I like what he said. I don't it's puzzling to me. Ryan Day is going after 86-year-old Lou Holtz post-game. And Dickert's going after 88-year-old Lee Corso about discussing the West Coast Conference and whether or not it's feasible for all the travel that the student athletes are going to have. And both here's the other surprising part. There are several, not just Dickert and Day. There are a lot of coaches that talk about noise all of a sudden. When they're preaching, ignore the noise in their locker room. And all they do is get behind a mic and discuss what everyone's saying, but then act like they don't hear or read anything, that they're trapped inside of an office, when it's the exact opposite. And the no one wants to watch game, if you think of it through the lens of the networks and the conferences that brought other programs aboard and left those two, what is the perception of that? It's that you don't have a home, you've got to go to the Mountain West if you want one, if you want a home, a landing spot, and that's no consolation prize. That's just relegation. So I don't know. I just find it strange that if you're going to call out what you've been hearing, you're not calling out 55-year-old Kirk Herbstreit. You're calling out 88-year-old Lee Corso, who makes a cameo appearance weekly.
Well, so I'm glad you brought up Herbstreit because he's chimed in. He went after our guy Ryan Leaf on Twitter because Ryan Leaf was fired up.
And by the way, Ryan told
Jake
us.
Dickert also.
Ryan told us too about the eyeballs and the numbers and how many people watch Washington State.
Yeah. So Ryan Leaf tweeted, and College Game Day mentioned College Game Day is supposed to be a celebration of college football. Instead, they choose to make it a big joke, and everyone on the panel enables it. Just a bunch of wind socks. Hashtag Cougs versus everybody. To which Kirk Herbstreit responded and said, huh? Is this a real tweet? You must have been hacked, Ryan. Lee's point, in all caps, obviously was it is two teams that have been left out, that haven't found a home yet, not the, quote, no one watches bowl. Know you're excited your boys won, but damn, is what Herbstreit had to say in defending Lee Corso. Look, I get that Kirk Herbstreit's going to defend his guy, and Lee Corso, who obviously means a lot to him. I watched the segment, And it was a joke about no one wants them. This is, sort of the orphan bowl, if you will, between the two programs that got left behind, and everyone else now has a home, and they don't. That's exactly what Lee Corso was going for when he made the joke, and everyone laughed. Then they moved on, and they made their picks, with the game, and Vince Vaughn is sitting right there next to him, making picks in the Notre Dame Letterman's jacket and all that good stuff. So I get it if I'm Jake Dickert, and I think everything he said is completely fair. I do think the biggest hand in all this was ESPN and other networks that sort of stripped these conferences for parts and realignment to get what they wanted out of it, and that two programs in remote parts of the country got left behind, and that's got to be frustrating. I understand Ryan Leaf being upset with it and all of that. The going after the old guy thing twice in one weekend is a little strange. It's a little odd.
Yeah. And it's also Herb Street's in a very, maybe not very difficult, but it is a delicate role that he plays with Corso on that show.
Yeah.
Because they want him on the show, but they also don't want him on the show very long, in any long stretch, right? And it's Herb Street that makes sure that the segments go as planned. And we've said for the last couple of years, Chad, it's certain points where it's sad.
Yeah, no, it is.
And then certain points where it's nostalgic. Like, and that was closer to the Corso that everyone remembers than it was him forgetting the matchup that's written down on the paper in front of him. So, yeah, going after 88 years old Corso or 86-year-old Lou Holtz when, hey, the entire country watched Ohio State go soft against Michigan's front.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just Corso that's mentioning that no one wanted Washington State or Oregon State in this.
It's one, again, I thought Dickert did a great job with everything he was saying and conveying his point. It is one that would have been even more impactful had he just left Corso and like him reading a teleprompter or any of that out of it.
Yeah.
And just said, hey, I was watching College Game Day, and they all joked about the No One Watches Bowl. And if he just used it as they on the show,
yeah,
because everyone laughed and joked about it, then I think you make your point even better. Regardless.
They do belong, by the way.
Regardless, ESPN absolutely had a hand in the fate of Washington State. And here's the point that bothers me more than anything else. I do think someone's nudging Lee Corso and helping him out with things to say and jokes to write. They're not using that joke if that game's on an ESPN network. The game was on Fox. That's a big reason they make fun of the No One Watches Bowl, the No One Watches Us Bowl with it. They're not saying that about one of their own.
Well, I mean, I guess. I mean, that's.
If that game's the ESPN night game, they're not calling it the No One Watches Us Bowl.
Yeah.
I just don't believe they are. That's in part done by people around Lee Corso because Fox has that game.
They're also not going to have, they're moving on from the Pac-12, but they're going out of their way to discuss how good they are all of a sudden. You can't ignore it. By the way, the reason why the conference was ignored is because all summer the discussion was about next year in 2024, including SEC, Big Ten, what we're going to look like with the 12-team playoff. And we just totally overlooked these 5-month stretch of solid programs playing some really good football. Washington State's one of them, by the way. They're fun.
Yeah.
The entire conference is, and it's deep. I don't think we'll see two teams because I think they're going to beat up on each other.
Yeah, probably.
In the playoff.
But
and I'm I'm rooting for them as a conference this year.
Yeah, look, it's interesting to me that you had two 80-plus-year-old men, two head coaches.
That's my overall point there.
In victory.
In victory.
Not in defeat. Not with a bitterness of defeat speaking for them. In victory, decided to go after. One was right after the game on the field in the post-game interview. The other was in a press conference. I thought Jake Dickert came across way better than Ryan Day and his point and what he was saying.
Yeah, conversational.
I'd like to have a conversation with Coach Corso about this. And look, it's not funny to those schools. But we can joke about it, 2,000 miles away. from these places and even 20,000 miles away from their football programs culturally. But it is important to these programs, and they are the ones that have to deal with the fallout. And the fallout happens because of greed and because of TV networks picking what they want and manipulating things that they want.
And their commissioner.
And ineptitude from a leadership standpoint. All of those things.
Also great, though, was what we saw from Dan Lanning in the locker room prior to the kickoff against Colorado, prior to the annihilation of the Buffaloes on Saturday. Here's the Oregon head coach to his team.
Rooted in substance, not flash. Rooted in substance. Today, we talk with our pads. You talk with your helmet, right? Every moment. The Cinderella story is over, man. Right? They're fighting for clicks, we're fighting for wins. There's a difference, right? There's a difference, right? This game ain't going to be played in Hollywood. It's going to be played on the grass, right? It's going to be played on the grass.
There's Dan Lanning. And Chad, we mentioned earlier in the show, I'm still just surprised. I can't believe that Colorado's already at the point where they're producing pregame speeches like that. 4 games in.
It's going to be more to follow, too.
This week. Speaking of Hollywood, USC's on their way to Boulder this weekend.
Much like Deion Sanders has a reason for filming everything he does, there's a reason Oregon filmed that pep talk, that pregame speech, and posted it for everyone to see.
Coming up, more reaction.
You know what? They wanted the clicks, too.
To the NFL weekend. Friend of the show, Tank Williams, joins us, former NFL safety, now NFL analyst. That's next.
I'm here at the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix, but that's not the only big race that's on people's minds. Let's go talk about it.
There's no way Biden can win again. There's just no way. Even the people that voted for him because they didn't like Trump, now at least have to see, like, senile, not all there. Probably won't be alive for 4 more years.
Are you a Trump guy? Or are you a DeSantis guy? Or someone else?
I don't like any of them.
Who's your dream candidate? Who would you want to run?
Myself. I think the best candidates probably are smart enough not to run.
I just hope there's somebody that's young enough to care about the country instead of their politics.
My fear is they get Gavin Newsom from California, and I think it would be the new cool vote for the younger people, and that's what I don't like.
Who do you think on the Republican side would be able to take on Gavin Newsom?
Great question. As a Republican registered, I love what Trump's body of work did, but they're just out to get him and destroy him, and we won't get things done, which is crappy for me to say. I thought DeSantis was going to be the guy. Trump only has 4 years left. He cannot fix everything that just happened in 4 years. And he's going to be battling indictments and all these false stuff for the next 4 years. We won't get anything done. And it'll just be the stalemate in America. That's why I almost don't want him in. But if he is the leading candidate, that's who I'm going to vote for.
Is there any Democrat that you would vote for, consider voting for? Absolutely not. Yeah. What about RFK Jr.? No. Who should our first female president be?
Michelle Obama, of course.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to go with Harambe 2024.
We have the 2024 presidential race coming up, and I wanted to see who you thought your favorite TV characters would vote for. Homer Simpson, like who do you think he would vote for?
Donald Trump, all the way.
Vito Corleone.
Whoa. Whoever advances the cause of the Corleone family. Yeah.
Tony Soprano. If Tony Soprano is voting in the 2024 election, who do you think he's voting for?
I'm gonna go Ron DeSantis.
Okay. Why do you think that?
Just seems like a Ron DeSantis kind of guy.
Is this a meatball joke that you're trying to make right now? What about Homer Simpson?
Homer would vote for Biden because he's a dope.
Who do you think Napoleon Dynamite would vote for?
That's a good question. I actually don't know.
There's a right answer here.
He's voting for himself or Pedro.
There's a Viking show, I think.
Okay.
Maybe that's Hulu. I don't know.
So in the Viking show, whatever the main character is, who do you think they would vote for in 2024?
Probably a goat or a dog.
I think we have one of those in office right now. So who do you think Jon Snow would vote for in this upcoming election?
I'm going to say Donald J. Trump.
Why do you think so?
because Game of Thrones is all about drama, and Trump comes with the drama, baby.
Would you vote for Trump from jail?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably. Because at that point, what else do you have to lose?
Okay, would you vote for Trump from a jail cell?
Hell yeah, baby. I will get Trump out of jail.
Would you vote for Trump in jail?
Oh, yeah.
Based as
The thing that Trump needs to remember is there's another political figure that said, I don't recall very well. Yeah. And that's all he's got to say.
Is there like a dream candidate, someone that you think could like save us all?
Yeah, Jesus.
Amen to that.
Sixth and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Glad you're with us for Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow here on OutKick. You can join Chad in the chat on YouTube. Search out OutKick. Hope you'll subscribe while you're there. Got a doubleheader tonight, Monday Night Football. We've got some wagering advice headed our way shortly, but also our picks for the night coming up in about 20 minutes through OutKick.com/bet. We say hello to a guy who wears a lot of different hats and does that very well. From college scouting to NFL analyst, NFL and sports betting analyst. Tank Williams joins us, former NFL safety, joins us back on the show. It's great to see you again, man, and great to catch up again today.
I know. Thanks for having me. It's been a while.
It has been, man, and let's get to it. So Chad and I were discussing this earlier. Do you go with Burrow tonight?
I think you have to go with Burrow. I think that's the only choice for the Cincinnati Bengals right now. Do you see the way that the Los Angeles Rams offense is playing right now?
Yeah.
Like, that's a top 3 offense in the league without their best player on the field, and that's Cooper Kupp. Like, it's amazing what they've been able to do with Puka Nacua, with Tutu Atwell. They really haven't even had to use Van Jefferson. Now you have Kyron Williams running the ball well and catching out of the backfield. Like, the Cincinnati Bengals are going to need everything on their roster in order to try to keep up with that Rams offense. And so, yeah, you need Burrow out there, and he needs to connect with Jamar Chase, because I don't know what in the hell's been going on with them right now, but they need to get that resolved immediately.
Yeah, no doubt. A game-time decision with the calf issue, and they've got the Rams and then the Titans coming up next Sunday. They'll be on a short week. Tank, the perspective of hanging 70 points on an opponent and being the opponent and knowing that you look up the scoreboard and it hasn't happened since the 50s, 70 points by the Dolphins on the Broncos. Yeah. Can you give us perspective from the former player here of what you're thinking when you see that score?
The only thing I was thinking was that I didn't know you could show explicit content like that on CBS. I thought usually that stuff happened on like the way back channels or behind the paywall.
Yeah.
Like, that was incredible to see. I mean, Miami, the one thing that they're able to do, they have more speed than anybody in the NFL. And also Mike McDaniel, like, he's a master at scheme. So when you add speed and scheme together, it's a hell of a drug, and they were just exploiting Denver. It was amazing to see what they were able to put on tape. As far as having Tyreek running down the field like Frank the Tank on Old School, just butt naked, like nobody was around him, and that's the best player in the NFL. And then also the running backs just hitting their head on the back of the goalpost on a consistent basis. Like, it was crazy for him to be able to scheme up that defense that consistently throughout the entire 4 quarters.
And I'm going to get to we'll get to the issues with the Broncos in a moment, but from the Dolphins' perspective, think about scoring 70 in a league and in a game where the clock doesn't stop after first down. You've got the running clock; it's just the normal. Yeah. And they put up 70 on an NFL defense, no matter how bad they may be. That's incredible to me what they did. That's a statement.
Yeah, I mean, 70 on the NFL defense. They didn't have Jalen Waddle, who is one of the more dynamic wide receivers in the league.
Right.
You throw for over 300 pass yards and rush for over 300 yards. Like, it's hard to grasp. Like, that's stuff that happens on the video game. And for Sean Payton to do all the talking that he was doing in the preseason And for this to be happening to his team right now, like, man, this is quite humbling for him, I'm pretty sure.
I think maybe the polar opposite of the Dolphins offense is Zach Wilson and the Jets offense. If we had to look at it, NFL perspective, maybe the complete opposite side of that. Tank, how frustrating is it? You know, the Jets defense allows 15 points and loses, right? When that continues to happen, how can that divide a locker room when it's one side, especially on defense, that's pulling their weight, but you just can't get anything going on the other side? And there's talk of Zach Wilson needing confidence and guys getting into it on the sideline. How quickly can that tear a team apart?
Pretty quickly. Like, I was in Minnesota when I saw that happen, where we couldn't really generate anything on offense. And that was my first year there after leaving the Titans for my first 4 years in the league. And it got pretty divisive, like, rather quickly. If the offense isn't putting up points, and then you know that you have enough on defense to do what it takes to go win a championship, then it becomes frustrating. And so, I mean, honestly, I feel for Zach Wilson. Honestly, I didn't want to watch that game because I knew it was going to be ugly. Then I saw some clips on social media. Dan Orlovsky, he posted a really good thing saying that, showing how Zach Wilson had like a 4-vert setup. And instead of just reading the coverage, when you could see clear as they had a whole shot on the backside in cover 2, and he just went with the check down. And that just showed him that the coaches are in his head saying, one thing we don't want you to do is press it too much. Don't turn the ball over. Just play it close to the vest and like lean on the defense. But what we understand is this: in the NFL, if you're going to win games, if you're going to win championships, you have to be able to put the ball in your quarterback's hand at some point and have them go win the game for you. We saw that last night with the Las Vegas Raiders. They took the ball out of Jimmy G's hand. You have to have trust and confidence in your quarterback if you're going to win games in this league. And obviously, the Jets don't have it in Zach Wilson right now.
Tank Williams, our guest sports betting analyst. You can follow him on social at TankWilliams13. So you played for Jim Schwartz and his defense. Mm-hmm. What he's doing now in Cleveland, the Browns' defense, elite, phenomenal. They had a crazy day yesterday against a bad Titans offensive line, but even prior to that, they've been good. Knowing that they don't have Chubb, but knowing Deshaun Watson can at least show what he did yesterday at times. If he's consistent, how good can the Browns be, and how far can just their defense take them,
Defense can take them all the way. Jim Schwartz was with us here in Nashville, and when you look at the pieces that he has, he improved that interior of the defensive line. They don't have an Albert Haynesworth, but Myles Garrett, you can look at him like being a bulkier Javon Curse, a freak. He has some fast linebackers that can run side to sideline, like Keith Bullock and some of those guys we had. You have a guy in Denzel Ward who is a top cornerback in the league, Samari Rose. So you have all the pieces in place where you can be a shutdown defense on a consistent basis. And they put that blueprint on tape with the Titans. I thought the Titans would be a little bit more aggressive than what they were against Cleveland. That was disappointing. Like, I understand what they were trying to do, but you're trying to play action pass them. You have to get the ball out of your hands quick because that offensive line couldn't hold up to that defensive line. And then at the same time, like, Derrick Henry couldn't get anything going. And so it was just a slaughtering as far as Cleveland's defense dealing with the Titans offense. And then it was disappointing on the Titans defense as well, because you see some plays where they're just giving up layups. Like Amari Cooper just running down the field scot-free, where it looks like the Titans are in a cover 4. Yeah. And then the safety in the corner just let them run right by you. You're trying to stay in the game late. And so it's just dysfunctional things like that happen that just tell you that, I don't know, like there's something going on with the Titans for them to be as good as they were. Like, obviously the offensive line was in shambles. They had some key players missing yesterday. But at the same time, like, there are things where Deshaun Watson throws the ball behind them. And that's the play that you have to take advantage. You don't go and get a pass interference and a roughing the passer the very next play to put them back in the first down territory. Then they go and march down the field and get a touchdown. So it's just plays and sequences like that just make you scratch your head and say, what's really going on out there for the Titans?
Yeah, that loss felt different, looked different, felt different, felt like signaling something worse coming for the Titans, but we'll see. For the Browns, obviously very good. Outside of Kansas City, then Miami, now with the injury to Aaron Rodgers, are the Browns one of those teams in the mix as an AFC contender? Who are you looking at the strongest, Tank, as teams you think could win the AFC this year?
I think the Browns they should definitely be in consideration, I would say, for this reason, because we already talked about the defense, but then you look at what Deshaun Watson has on offense. Like, obviously, losing Nick Chubb is big. I mean, he's their version of King Henry for the Titans. I mean, he's not flashy, All he does is run downhill and get you about 5 to 7 yards a clip. And I mean, that sets up so much for the offense, but they show that they can still have a substantial run game with Jerome Ford. Now you have Kareem Hunt back in there. Amari Cooper is one of the more underrated wide receivers that you have. He's definitely a legit number one that we saw can make plays down the field on the sideline, one of the best route runners in the league. I think Elijah Moore is a great guy that you can have in the slot. And then David Njoku is a mismatch for almost any linebacker trying to cover him because of his size and speed. So I think you pair all those together with a really strong defense. And now it seems that Deshaun Watson is starting to find some confidence. He found it against the Titans defense at least. Like if they start to get on a little bit of a roll right now, they're definitely going to be a team that you have to look out for. But at the same time, what Miami is doing and putting on tape right now is crazy. And I want to see them and KC go head to head. Like I think everybody who's a fan of football wants to see Patrick Mahomes and Tua go toe to toe.
Absolutely. I also put Baltimore and Buffalo in that mix. Where do you come down on the Ravens? And as long as Josh Allen can protect the football, they're now back in sync, it appears, versus where we saw them to begin.
Yeah, that defense had a get-right moment against the Washington Commanders, so I think that's what they wanted to see. And at the same time, Josh Allen looked good. I mean, he had a big play to Gabe Davis. It seems like Stephon Diggs was 7-11. He was always open. And then James Cook is really good for that offense because the Buffalo Bills aren't going to be a team that try to run the ball down your throat because they like to use Josh Allen's legs as well. But he's sufficient enough in the run game and then also can catch the ball well out of the backfield. And so now with that defense starting to pick up the slack on the other side, I think they're going to be a force to contend with. And what I want to see out of the Baltimore Ravens is this. Like you bring in Todd Monken. You saw what he was able to do with Stetson Bennett at Georgia. And so I thought that we would have seen something more in the pass game, especially going against the Colts where they no longer have Stephon Gilmore. That seemed like that was the weak point of that defense, the pass coverage. And so I don't know if it was the weather or something like that, but I really didn't like what I saw out of the Ravens offense. Lamar was using his legs a little bit more. That was good to see. I understand that there was a pass interference call that was missed late in the game, but the key is this. You have Kenyon Drake who fumbles down in Indianapolis territory. That takes points off the board. And then you have a fumble by Lamar, I believe, and that led to a field goal.
They couldn't hang on to the football in the rain.
Right. And then the defense, too. Like, the defense had to deal with some injuries, and so they rushed for over 100 yards against that Ravens defense. And Minshew was efficient enough to keep the Colts in it. And so I think they need to clean up some things on offense and defense. But once they're healthy and if they can get rolling, the Ravens are definitely there. But they don't look like the team I anticipated to start the season, that's for sure.
One more, and then I'm going to get your picks for tonight's doubleheader for Monday night. Dallas and their defense. Can you explain the significance? I don't know how they lost to Arizona first, but what's the loss of Trayvon Diggs really mean for that group in this first game since we know that he's out for the year with the ACL?
I mean, yeah, that was going to be big regardless whether they won or lost yesterday. But the thing that really struck out to me was watching that game. Like, I'm not sure if you remember the mystical quote where he said, "If you ever see me in the forest fighting with a grizzly bear, help the bear." Like, that's what the Cowboys look like. We thought the Cowboys was going to be the bear and just go up in there and just maul Arizona, but that wasn't the case. Like, Arizona brought it to them from the very first snap of the game. And that was one thing, like, if you watched Arizona on tape, you saw it in the Giants game. You saw it in the Commanders game. Like, James Conner, like, runs with that dog. That defense, they're going around, they run, they flying, and they're hitting. And so I don't know if Dallas walked in there and said that, okay, like the Giants were able to come back in and walk them at the end of that game, so this should be a cakewalk for us. But like, nah, like Arizona came with that dog. And that's just a reminder that there's so much parity in the NFL right now that you have to come with your lunch pail every day if you want to be one of the top teams in the league, because you're going to have a team like Arizona and some of these other ones like the Indianapolis Colts that if you don't come with your A game, they're going to come and hit you in the mouth and steal a win from you. And that's something that you can't do in the league if you want to go ahead and secure one of those buys and try to give yourself the best path to the Super Bowl.
Real quick before we get your picks, you're a Pac-12 guy, Stanford. Are you bummed to see what's happened to the conference and your Stanford Cardinal going to the ACC?
I'm bummed to see what's going to happen to the conference, especially when you see how good the Pac-12 teams are this year, where you see like SC and Washington, what those two teams are able to do on offense. Oregon, like just phenomenal offensive specimens. And then what Deion has been able to do, like Deion, he's not there yet as far as the talent that he has along the offensive line and defensive line, but that dude has been a money maker for college football. You go ask ABC, CBS, Fox, and all these other networks what he's been able to generate for them over the past few weeks for college football, it's extraordinary. And so just to see the excitement around the Pac-12 teams and what it's done for college football this season just been incredible. And so for this to be the way that we're going out, where it seems like we're one of the better teams in the country to have all this talent straight across the pack, like it's disappointing, but at the same time, I'm glad that we're going out on this high note.
2 games tonight. First, Philadelphia on the road against Tampa Bay. The Bucs are the only team remaining that have not committed a turnover yet this season, which is crazy.
Right.
Eagles on the road, favored by 5.5. Which way do you lean?
I'm leaning towards the Eagles because I feel like they're the better team. At the same time, like I gotta admit that, can you imagine how it's gonna be if Baker Mayfield knocks off the Eagles? Like, I don't know if folks have forgotten, like this dude was swagged out at Oklahoma. And so if he wins this game, like it's gonna be Fitzmagic with a little bit of Hennessy in it. Like the swag is gonna be off the chain. And so I want to see it because when you look at that Philadelphia defense, it doesn't look quite the same as last year. They've been giving up a lot of big chunk plays in the past game, and that dude Mike Evans has been a specimen. They haven't even gotten Chris Godwin off yet, so you know that's coming tonight. And on the flip side, like I feel that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, they could get got with the past game too. And we saw the little confrontation between Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown. I'm looking for A.J. Brown to have a big game.
Same.
And that's going to be the thing that helps them get over the top, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers tonight.
15 seconds here. Bengals favored by 3 at home with the Rams visiting.
If Burrow doesn't play, then I think the Rams get this. That offense is just too potent. And I think that they may get exposed with all the players that they're missing on defense like Jesse Bates.
Hey, your mystical reference makes me think back to my high school years. Thank you for that. And Master P as well. We'll catch up soon, man. This was great. Thank you.
No Limit Records.
Right, for sure. That's my hood. I'm from Bay St. Louis, Mississippi, you know.
Tank Williams, one of the best.
Thanks, Tank.
Check him out on social, Tank Williams 13. Picks next.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation. And pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the number 1 overall pick.
Is it fair for people to be upset with Barbie?
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose. I mean, what have you seen firsthand of how this has affected you in the plant and your fellow employees? Under Joe Biden, the Taliban has retaken Afghanistan. Putin has invaded Ukraine. So if there was ever a time for freaking aliens to inhabit and conquer Earth, now would be that time.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
There's no doubt in my mind he could have caught the ball in his back pocket if he'd been running.
Blowing a lead and losing a game
is 100 times more lasting and painful in some clubhouses than losing the game 15-0. If I had to start a list in the last 10 years of horrible underachievers, he's at the top.
We were directly impacted by the whole Leah Thomas thing, and we were able to see you guys on the ground with your signs supporting. That was huge.
They were saying, oh, it's only 1 or 2. That's rubbish, and we all know that's rubbish. Once those trans-identifying males were able to succeed, it just encouraged others.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Full taste of the Southern Legend.
Sixth and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow rolls on. Search out OutKick on YouTube. That's where you can join us in the chat live each and every day, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern.
Just walked out into 6th and Peabody on the barroom floor, and shout out to Raul and his family who's here. Big fans of the show, Hutton. Wanted me to tell you hello as well.
Shout out to Raul.
Also said go Vols on his way out. Raul, big Vol fan.
What do you
fan
think
of the show? We're a big fan of his.
Interesting SEC slate coming up for a lot of teams. We'll get to that coming up. But what could be some surprising newsmakers tomorrow based on results of Monday Night Football tonight? We've got 2 games going head-to-head, which Chad loves. I like the option of a blowout versus, having to stick to a blowout instead of having the option of turning over and watching a different game. And either way, we'll be entertained because we're going to have some reasons to play this game tonight.
Of course.
PointsBet's got you covered there. If you haven't taken your shot with PointsBet, now is the perfect moment. The big reason why, exclusively for first-time PointsBet users, grab this unique offer. Right now, get up to $1,000 in second chance bets. And your first bet, if it doesn't go as planned, PointsBet has your back with a second chance. Get this offer by visiting outkick.com/bet. Complete the registration process with PointsBet and make your first bet. If your first bet happens to lose, then guess what? That's when your second chance bets come into play. Remember, terms and conditions apply. You got to be 21 or older in legal gambling states. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Head over to outkick.com/bet right now to snag this offer. Chad, what do you like tonight in the first kickoff, which is Philadelphia on the road in Tampa Bay? This game on ABC and ESPN Plus.
I like the Eagles -5.5. I parlayed that with A.J. Brown as an anytime touchdown scorer. I think he has a big game. Give me Eagles -5.5 on the road, A.J. Brown with a touchdown.
So I like the A.J. Brown aspect of this. I'm going over 68.5 receiving yards for A.J. tonight in this game.
That's good.
Because they're saying all the right things. And by the way, Brown and Hurts are great friends, even prior to him being traded there. I think everything's cool. I just think his guy is going to throw him the football a lot tonight. Personally, I would go over, and I'm taking that heavy on my pick of this game.
We're going 2 different routes. We both think A.J.
Touchdown.
Brown's going to have a big night. I just think he gets in the end zone. But, I mean, I'm now considering parlaying all 3. Over 68.5 yards, you said, for him? With the touchdown,
over, under,
and with the Eagles -5.5.
So Eagles at 2-0, Bucs at 2-0 here. NFC South went 0-3 yesterday. It could be 0-4 after tonight. Or does Baker Mayfield have the continued magic with this? He's the first Bucs quarterback to start a season 2-0 with no interceptions since Sean King in 2000, the year 2000, Mysticals era, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And while he's under pressure, when he's blitzed, he's 14 of 17 for 223 yards and a touchdown. That was last week. That's tied for the most passing yards under pressure in a game over the last 4 seasons. Baker Mayfield did that with Tampa Bay. And the Eagles still have not looked right yet on either side of the ball. They've got to get Jalen Hurts going. I think they do that tonight. I think it's a really good game, though, and no one expected it to be.
No, I think so, too. I also, while I think it's a good game, I think it's a nice breakout opportunity for the Eagles, who, as you mentioned, have not looked right yet.
Chad, the second game kicking off at 8:15 Eastern, the Los Angeles Rams hitting the road to face the Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals at 0-2, staring down 0-3 with their quarterback Joe Burrow, who's going to be a game-time decision and is trying to play through that calf issue. But even if he plays through, the mobility's not there.
Hutton, I do not think Joe Burrow's playing tonight.
Okay.
For that reason, I love Rams money line. They're a 2.5-point underdog right now. That's going to adjust if there's a final word on Joe Burrow. I've not liked what I've seen from him so far.
It was 3 and 2.5. The fact that they're still an underdog tells me that Vegas thinks Burrow's playing.
Yeah, but I think even when he's played, he's looked hurt.
Yes.
I like the Rams. They've looked good so far. Give me the Rams straight up money line at plus 2.5.
Burrow has averaged, even when he's played, what Chad's saying, he's averaged 152 passing yards per game in the first 2 games. That is down from 280 yards passing per game from a year ago. Higgins had no catches in week 1. Jamar Chase, 31 receiving yards in week 2. And you've got Chase, who's a Pro Bowler. It's 70 yards through 2 games total now going into this matchup, where is it going to be Browning? They've elevated their practice squad quarterback as well, and Reed Stinnett, and we'll see if Burrow plays. I tend to lean the way you're going. I'm going with another prop, though, for Joe Mixon, over 14.5 carries. Over under 14.5. I thought that was low.
That's good news for my fantasy team if that goes over. I need
what
a
do you
big
need
night
tonight?
from Joe Mixon. I'm down by 1 point, and we each have – my opponent has 2 players, Jalen Hurts and a receiver. I have Joe Mixon and Rachaad White, my 2 running backs yet to go.
If Burrow plays and the Bengals
need a big night from those guys.
Go into week 4 at 0-3, they're facing the Titans here in Nashville on Sunday. At 0-3, 0-4 potentially, maybe you do think about IRing Burrow.
Yep.
Because the reports were they were considering it this past weekend. Chad, a couple thoughts quickly on college football. And, at what point do we stop giving Iowa any relevance going into a season, ranked as high as they are? I mean, Penn State scored more points than Iowa had yards.
It's nuts. They had more. They also ran more plays.
More plays, yes.
They
Sorry,
ran more plays than Iowa had yards.
Points. Yeah,
here's the other thing.
That's the issue. Like, Iowa is the same. It's the same storyline, and we treat this ranked opponent like they're going to play a factor in the Big Ten. And every time I try to tune in and see what they're up to, and I've tuned in this past weekend to see what Penn State is capable of. They showed us, but have they really shown us anything based on the fact that they're facing Iowa and that awful offense?
But why is it a whiteout game also for Penn State? I feel like Penn State gave them too much credit in that 31-0 beatdown of them. I guess they do it twice a year maybe because they're going to play Michigan later in the year, but that's 11 a.m. They like to do it at night.
There you go. That's probably
so
why.
Maybe that's
it's
the
a big
reason
noon
why.
Kickoff game, I guess.
Penn State looks really good.
They do.
I want to see if Penn State can be in those games with. I think they're going to be in them. Can they get over the hump?
It's not that we're surprised they beat Illinois or
Iowa.
Iowa. It's the fact that they just handled them and didn't allow anything. They didn't allow those teams to feel like they were ever in the game.
Yeah,
that's important. Thinking through the SEC a bit, Auburn, was it like 56 passing yards in that game?
They look terrible.
How do you feel if you're Auburn right now, knowing that you produced that against A&M?
I think everything is okay for them because it's year one with Hugh Freeze and it's a completely new offense. But you can't feel good about it. Here's my takeaway from that game. Max Johnson looked awesome. And I feel like he maybe should have been the starter to start the year the way he looked. I know it was half.
It's felt that way the last couple of years at A&M versus who they've gone with.
When he comes in the game, I'm like, man, this guy looks like a stud.
Well, they should use both.
Yeah, if Wigman gets healthy. But I thought
they should use both.
I thought Max Johnson looked great in that game.
Kentucky, 4-0.
I had to rib Kelly in Vegas a little bit.
Oh, you did well.
Because I remember she was wincing when I took in my pick A&M -8 and said that was her upset pick with Auburn. And I just said, how about my Aggies? She didn't like it.
Kentucky 4-0. Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, and Missouri. Those are their next 4 games. I don't think they're winning 2 of the 4. They're 4-0 now.
I think 2 of the 4 is a success. Right?
Agreed. Can they get 2 wins out of the 4? Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, Missouri.
They get Florida at home, right, this week?
They do.
So I think that's very doable. In fact, they're a favorite in that game, I believe. Yeah, I think they can get 2, but it's not going to be easy. I watched a bit of that Kentucky-Vanderbilt game. Boy, Vanderbilt struggled in that one. But Kentucky had 2 defensive touchdowns. I mean, I think the final score, they got a big lead, but it's a little bit deceiving because their defense scored 14 and they won by, I think, 17.
Yeah, 41.
Then it went 45-28.
45-28.
But 14 of those points were from their defense.
They get 3 of the 4 games at home.
Yeah.
I don't know where we are with Tennessee later this year, but in order, it's Florida and Georgia in Athens, then hosting Missouri, and then they host Tennessee.
I think
they win 1 of those 3.
I think Kentucky and Missouri are interesting. South Carolina can make themselves very interesting with a road win this weekend over Tennessee. Tennessee's got a lot of anger and revenge coming into this game. A night game in Neyland Stadium based on how they derailed their season last year. Yeah, I'm very – in the SEC East, we know Vanderbilt's last, right? We can separate them. But Florida, Kentucky, Missouri, South Carolina, Tennessee, now that all those teams are starting to play each other, Florida's got the big win already. They beat Tennessee. So they're 1-0. Tennessee's 0-1. But the rest of those games, I think, are going to be interesting. It goes in line with what the SEC is this year. Not great, but good enough to beat a really good team and good enough to lose to almost anyone.
And Kentucky, if they get 2 of the 4, Chad, they end up hosting Alabama later this year too. That can be the icing on the cake.
Yeah.
Usher is your halftime performer for the Super Bowl.
This was
in Las
surprising
Vegas.
to me.
Me too. I bought into
Guns talking about the boy bands being a part of it.
I bought into it based on all the chatter and how much we're seeing them publicly now as a group. It's going to be Usher, though. He says it's an honor of a lifetime to finally check a Super Bowl performance off of his bucket list.
I think he'll be very entertaining. Not the most exciting announcement for a Super Bowl halftime show. And based on where Usher is right now in his career.
We were at the Super Bowl in Arlington, and Usher was in that halftime performance with Black Eyed Peas.
That's right.
But this is him as the headliner. I mean, it's – how old is he now? 45 would be my guess. 46 probably.
I don't think he's that old. Maybe he is. I'm looking it up right now.
I'd say mid-40s.
Isn't it crazy that Black Eyed Peas performed at a Super Bowl halftime? That's what I took away from that. He's 44 years old.
Okay.
Not sure.
I mean, it's cool, but it's not – I want to see what else they're going to do with this.
It's not as cool as New Kids on the Block, Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, 98 Degrees, LFO. Any and all boy bands. Not nearly as cool as that.
Maybe lead
you know what
singer
else
of
is not as cool
R.I.P.
as? Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
When is she going to do a Super Bowl halftime show?
I don't know. She'll probably be at the Super Bowl watching the halftime show as the Chiefs play.
Maybe she'll come out in a Kelce jersey and perform with Usher.
Maybe Kelce will just stay out for halftime with her. Who knows?
Maybe she'll convince Kelce to quit football, and it'll derail the Chiefs dynasty.
Quick question on her getting to Kansas City that I thought about yesterday. If you're Kelce, You want to you don't talk about punching up or feuding down. This is the opposite. Where Taylor's. How do you date up if you're Taylor Swift? Kelce's certainly doing that. The private jet. Is Taylor getting there on her own, or is Kelce sending something to her to get there?
Oh, she's getting there on her own.
So, but how do you go 2 months and she's already at Arrowhead?
Yeah, she's not flying wheels up. That's what.
No, I know
that's
that.
what Kelce would be able to send to her.
And then
she's got something different. Did you see that OutKick has this story? She paid everyone's bill
at
a restaurant so they would GTFO so she could eat alone in the restaurant.
That's odd.
It's awesome, though. I mean, that's a gift. Are you kidding me? If I'm out for a big night and a big meal, and someone, hey, they're going to pay your entire meal.
If you'll just
Taylor
leave,
Swift can come, like, yeah, all right.
Get this to go.
I'll finish up and I'll get
Taylor
out of here.
Swift's going to be here, but you can't see her. All the security details coming in.
I'm like Andy Staples. I'll finish this filet and this burger, these 2 entrees, and get me a couple more entrees on my way out to go if Taylor's paying.
Still odd that you can't find a back room in a restaurant somewhere. That's Travis Kelce's problem. He's got to figure that out
She
now.
can't be bothered with humans, Hutton.
Enjoy Monday Night Football. We're back at it tomorrow for Hot Mic.